What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 69. Nice.
We did
I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the future class of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
What are we doing for episode 69, man? It has to be something special.
I thought I would say nice and you'd say nice and then Barrett would say nice, but I only said nice and I didn't prep anybody else about saying nice. Nice.
Hey, and you know
nice.
what? We've already done.
Here's
more
what I
than
want.
Tim
Hold on, no,
Gettys
everybody
did,
listening right now, whether you're your computer, maybe you're out on the tractor, maybe you're driving your car. I'm gonna do it again, all right? And then we're all gonna say nice together, one unified thing, all right? P.S. I Love You XOXO episode 69. Nice. There it is. See, I felt good. We all said nice together.
You know?
Hell yeah.
God, it's embarrassing how, because that's the thing is like you think about, oh man, when Tim was 30 under 30, he was a hip, cool kid. You know what I mean? He understood what 69 means, right, kids? You understand what I'm saying, right? But then he got 30, and what did he start worrying about? Taxes, Metamucil, what Bob Barker's up to. He forgot about 69. He's not thinking about 69 anymore.
Crazy to think about. And he still gets to host that show. That's the thing that's egregious about it to me, is that he still gets to host Gamescast when he made a mistake that big. Didn't acknowledge episode 69.
Exactly.
Barrett, can you turn my video upside down? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean,
what are you doing? What are you gonna do?
Like you rotate my video?
Get your Miles Morales mask.
Boom, right here.
Hell yeah! Now it's episode 69. Let's fucking go.
Oh, I get it. Okay,
Yeah.
I see what's up. I'll just turn like this the entire time, and then we can do shit like this. And you turn it like that. Other way. There you go. See. So they see again, like all the kids right now who are under 30, they get it, and then all the people, all the squares over 30 are like, what are they talking about? 69, one away from 70. What's the big deal?
All right, Bless, I'm gonna flip feedback and just before you get sick or anything, you know.
Yeah,
yeah.
Things started falling from the floor. I was getting kind of scared there.
That would, I won't lie, that would have been an amazing bit if you had thought it through enough to where you're like, turn me upside down, and then you start like somehow throwing things up. What are you doing? Blessing, how you been?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty chill Tuesday. It's fun because we're recording this later than we usually do, because we usually record this on Monday and then post on Tuesday. But since we're recording on Tuesday instead, I have like a weird energy. I didn't drink coffee this morning because I wasn't on KFGD, and so now I'm here with my tea, with my nice black tea, and I'm just like, I'm caffeinated, I'm energized up, but I'm also like very chill at the same time right now. I got chill energy. Okay, so because I just came off of a tech test for that DJ Khaled Megan Fox event I'm hosting Wednesday night on twitch.tv/evil geniuses. If you want to come over there for an LG sponsored stream with them, and so it's this, that's a tech check for an hour 15 is a boring process of latencies and things like that. So I had to go pour myself a giant mug of iced coffee. So I'm just drinking the Starbucks cold brew right out of the fridge right here. Oh, do you usually go for the Starbucks cold brew?
I mean, yeah, like an afternoon cup of coffee for sure. But then the problem I had, Blessing, is that I'm very cold. It's cold down in my office today. So I got the space heater going, but then I threw on a sweatshirt and now I'm drinking cold brew. Of course, I would love a hot cup of coffee, but I don't have time. And because I've been all talk, Bless. I've been all talk since the move and having a real office now of I need to get a Keurig, just a one shot over here. That way I can just get cups of coffee. Jen can only have one cup of coffee a day while pregnant. There's no more Lucy, so I don't have the big pot of coffee going upstairs anymore. This is some riveting content. Of course, as you pointed out, we are recording later in the week because we are adhering to the embargo today. We are here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. That's right. We got to see a behind closed doors demo. So let's not dawdle. We can get into that preview right after I tell you that this is PSI Love You XOXO. Each and every week, Blessing and I come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that, you can head over to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where, of course, you can be part of the show with your questions, comments, concerns, everything under the PlayStation sun. Then, of course, you can watch this, record it live, usually. Patreon.com/kindafunnygames gets a private link as we record it on our usual day, Monday. But again, embargo for a big preview like Ratchet and Clank. No live audience today. However, it's no big deal. You can get over there. You can get exclusive shows. You can get exclusive access. You can get the show ad-free. And you can get every episode of PSI Love You XOXO with the post show we'll do today. However, if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. You can go to youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every week to get a brand spanking new episode. Usually, like I said, we record on Monday on Patreon. You can catch them live. And then, of course, they go up on Tuesday. Again, on Patreon, no ads, post show, all the stuff there for you. However, if you're getting it with the ads and no post show, usually 6 a.m. on Tuesdays. But again, out of the ordinary day. Before we get into this Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart stuff, let's talk about housekeeping. Right now, over on youtube.com/kindafunnygames, there's a bunch of cool content up. You can go over for more Resident Evil 7 clips of Blessing playing this game. And just, man, I don't know, Bless. I don't know if you're cut out for the Resident Evil life, you know?
Bless, I have a question to ask you. Do you know what a scorpion is?
Listen, all right, my brightness in my monitor, I turned it up all the way, but it's still slightly dark, and so I don't see things that are located in dark places. I don't see them as brightly as I should. And so when a bunch of slugs are just grouped up together on my monitor, for a split second, it could look like a scorpion. And in that moment, I said scorpion. And I was corrected, and I was like, damn, this is going to follow me for the rest of my existence.
If you want to go see Blessing be unable to identify scorpions in Resident Evil 7, go ahead, go over there and check it out, youtube.com/kindafunnygames. We also have a brand new Games Cast up there. You can get our fall 2021 predictions, including Games Beats Jeff Grubb coming by to give us some information, hang out with us, talk about E3 2021. Again, that's the Games Cast, available wherever podcasts are given away for free. You can be like our Patreon producers over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. They, of course, are Omega Buster, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, Elliot, and Tom Bach. Today, we're brought to you by Purple Mattress, HVMN, and Titan, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin the show with topic of the show. Blessing?
Greg.
Late last week. Actually, if you want to go even further than that, 2 weeks ago, they do a state of play, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Here's a big old demo. Here's Marcus Smith talking about the game. That's it. See you when the game comes out in June. We're super excited. That's super cool. A couple hours go by, email from PlayStation. And it's, hey, on top of what you just saw, next week, do you want to come to an embargoed, obviously digital, hands-off event of Ratchet and Clank where you guys will basically see another basically hour-long demo. Then have 4 different roundtables to go to talking about a deep dive into Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And of course, Blessing and I said, hell yeah, we'd love to be there for that. So that's what we went and did. Now the embargo's up. We can officially talk about it. What I love about this is that you and I have not talked ahead of time. We have said nothing to it. And the way we did it is that we both went and watched the demo together. Well, together by... No, I mean, I knew you were watching it.
At the same
time. We didn't have our own Discord about it. We watched the demo. Then there was 4, like I said, breakout panels. Blessing and I each took 2 so that we could come together and talk about them today. So I took crafting a new Ratchet and Clank story and designing Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for the PS5. Meanwhile, Blessing, you went and saw building the world of Ratchet and Clank and then interdimensional score of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Would you like to begin? What was the most exciting thing you take away from this? First off, hour-long demo we got for, in all intents and purposes, maybe 45 minutes. And then these 2 big panels you went and saw. What do you walk away thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fun process going to preview this game because we've seen so much of this game already. And so from a lot of the preview, a lot of what I got was stuff that we had already gotten. Seeing the gameplay, seeing Rivet, seeing the Ratchet and Clank in action, seeing that it seems to be the Ratchet and Clank that we all know and love. I think that's probably the most exciting thing about this game for me. Going into it, it is a Ratchet and Clank game built for the PS5 that is all the things that you love about Ratchet and Clank still maintained, but meant to be improved and smoothed out. And from the review that we did / spoiler cast that we did of Ratchet and Clank a few weeks ago on this show, we had our critiques, we had our wishes, I guess, for a new Ratchet and Clank, and it seems like all that's pretty much fulfilled. And so I think a lot of that is exciting. We got to see a lot of the weapons and guns on display during that initial hour-long preview that me and you went to, which is awesome. And so we got to see a deeper dive on. I took a lot of notes on that preview. Yeah. And so legit, whenever they pulled out a new gun, I would stop and I'll write down the gun and I'd write down a quick description of what each gun is. And there are a lot of favorites that make a return. We talked about during that state of play, they busted out Mr. Fungi, which I think in the moment watching the state of play, we were like, oh, that must be Mr. Zarkon, and going and watching this preview, it's like, okay, cool, yeah, this is definitely Mr. Zarkon. So that seems really cool. And for those who might not be familiar with Ratchet and Clank, Mr. Zarkon is essentially this robot that you can bust out who is automated and will basically take out enemies for you while you're doing your thing. And Mr. Fun Guy is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart's version of that, which is really fun. But then we got to see
if you're a YouTube viewer right now, you'll see that the one and only Barrett Courtney on the 1s and 2s went through and took the B-roll Sony sent us and edited it into little packages we can play here. So there will be footage accompanying us if you're an audio listener and want to see some of the footage we saw behind closed doors. On top of that, it's worth pointing out, Barrett was warning me beforehand, if this at all stutters or chugs, it's definitely us and not the game. There were some things he thought OBS/VLC might be having a playback problem, but not to a crucial part. So if you look at it and it goes like framey for a second, it's not the game. Trust me, the game looks goddamn beautiful. Because if we're talking about like this demo we went and saw, and again, the furious notes I'm taking as I go, my favorite one here is God the speed ! Right?
Oh my god, yeah.
A couple weeks ago, like you said, we did the hashtag PS We Played This, our book club here on PS I Love You, and we did Ratchet and Clank PS4. 2016 version, obviously. And one of the things we talked about there was the fact that it felt at times so slow and so much like Ratchet had concrete in his boots. And for me, especially, it was when we were talking about riding the rails in some of those rail sections of jumping over, shooting the thing in front of you, jumping back the other and going like, this should be a breakneck pace. Things should be flying back. You should feel the wind in your hair. And we didn't have that, I felt, in that Ratchet and Clank. And just watching this one, seeing Rivet tackle the rail grinding, going the way she was going down things, the speed at which she was flying through stuff in Ratchet too, but we had a big Rivet part of the gameplay here. Like, I was like, holy shit, that's it. And even right now, as Barrett's showing like hoverboard stuff and like running around, like the game moves so quickly, so fluidly, so beautifully.
And that's the thing that's to me one of the biggest things to point out is I remember talking about Ratchet and Clank 2016 and being like, man, this game feels like it could use a dash mechanic. And I know that's been like a meme that we use a lot here where we're like, oh man, give it a parry and a dash. But honestly, like a dash mechanic for me is always welcome in many action games, and Ratchet and Clank is part of that, right? Like Ratchet and Clank, I think could have used something like that because the game it's a third-person shooter at its core. It's a platformer also, and it has a story and all this stuff also. But for the third-person shooting gameplay, the game feels like it should be moving at a speed where you should be able to dash back and forth in order to dodge enemy gunfire and do all this stuff. And Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart has that. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart also has bigger environments, it seems like, for combat when you are going back and forth and fighting a bunch of enemies. It seems like it also has more enemies on screen at a time and just way more going on at once in general. But yeah, like the size of the environments and the amount of things that they put into the environments so that you can play around and what feels like a playground is super awesome. And so you look at the rift portals, which you've seen a lot, which will pull you to certain parts of the map. You'll see the points that you'll swing from, when you use your grappling hook to swing across the map. You'll see a lot of those in combat. Rivet has jet boots that she can use to move a bit quicker, which will help you zoom from point to point, and all that stuff makes for exactly what you're talking about, which is a way faster combat experience, which I think seems like it's going to be a very fun time and way more active than Ratchet and Clank 2016.
You're talking about the grappling hook points. One of the things that they showed in the demo we both watched, right, was the hurl shot, which was basically that, again, amped up, right, where you shoot into it and spin around and you can fling yourself way far across the map to these points. And it reminded me, of course, from more recent thing of, the Returnal teleport spots throughout the Returnal maps, right, that shoot you as a ball of light over there or whatever. But this one is, spinning real quick and shooting your way over there. And for me, you're talking about the scale and scope of environments, the enemies on screen, the speed at which this game's moving. It was also them, I think, really playing with just a grander stage of what the PlayStation 5 probably allows them. And, in the very beginning of the what we saw, which I believe is the opening of the game, right? It's Ratchet and Clank going to this celebration, a ticker tape parade from them, honoring where they've come from. So it's kind of like a refresh of like, hey, if you haven't played a Ratchet and Clank game, here's what's going on. And it's, Quark and crew walking you through these things. But eventually, obviously, Dr. Nefarious shows up. He's going to start some shit, as Dr. Nefarious does, right? And one of the things he does is grab the parade float and start pulling it. And as it pulls, it gave this, to me, what felt like an Uncharted moment where Ratchet and Clank are on the back of the float as it's kind of tilting to the side and the wind's ripping them away. And like, it was not I shouldn't say it's not decidedly un-Ratchet, because again, I think Ratchet and Clank 2016 was just a smaller experience based on price point and everything else, as to something like a Crack in Time or the Ratchets that had come before it. But it's such a reminder of what I have through rose-colored glasses of what Ratchet was, and then also obviously what Ratchet and Clank is going for with Rift Apart here, as you actually see it. Barry, so good to be real here, as Dr. Nefarious pulls away and these guys hanging on and they jump onto it and they have to run and catch up and all these different things to what is going on in the actual gameplay. And it just felt bigger. And I think that's definitely what they're going for in terms of, to start drilling into some of the things that I saw in my panels, right? It was this idea, as, talking about crafting a new Ratchet and Clank story. They were talking about, Marcus and the team were giving a presentation of, how PS2 was this thing of, hey, we have gameplay, but we can also tell a story. PS3 was, let's actually make more introspective stories. PS4 obviously was a little bit of everything, redoing the thing with the reboot here. And then now PS5 is like even more personal internal struggles, but having this grand stage, being able to go through and play with all this different stuff, and having more emphasis on every planet they were talking about, right? Every one of these planets has its own stories. It's not just somewhere you're going or a new environment. It's meant to be, hey, this is a lived-in place that has backing behind. And right here's what I was talking about with the Uncharted kind of stuff of them pulling this thing, you having to play and like feeling like the actual world shift beneath your feet.
It feels very set PC, which is, I think that's awesome, because I think Ratchet and Clank has the setting, and it's the type of game that can do that on that similar level, where it is you are doing one thing one moment, or you're in a chill cutscene. Clank is talking to Ratchet, and then things break out, and then it is, all right, cool, we're transitioning right into action from the cutscene. Like we've seen that a lot in games, and of course, like we've seen that a lot in PlayStation first party games. But it feels one of the things they talked about in the, because I went to the animation panel, one of the first things they talked about in my panel was them talking about how the PS5 has allowed them to really demonstrate what the console can do from that standpoint. And so you're going to see a lot of that going back and forth between gameplay and cutscene way more seamlessly than they were before. And I think that's really cool. Greg, what I want to know from you, since you went to the panel that was more focused on narrative, one of the things we talked about in 2016's Ratchet and Clank was the fact that, the story is fun. It's a Ratchet and Clank story and all this stuff. But I think both of us felt like there could have been more to it in terms of the Ratchet and Clank characters. Like a lot of the, I think, personality and character that we got from Ratchet and Clank 2016 was from characters like Captain Quark and other surrounding characters, but it felt like Ratchet and Clank maybe could have been more, at least for me, they felt like they could have been better utilized in that game. Do you feel like the story for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is going to do more for you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, I would say, a three-pronged approach, and the first two would be Ratchet versus Rivet, right? Where they were talking about, obviously this is set after Into the Nexus. This is the continuation, the thing that the Rift, the interdimensional portal gun that I forget the name of. Dimensionator, thank you, is a thing that it was teased at the end of Into the Nexus, where it's like, oh, okay, cool, can Clank fix this and like get Ratchet back to his Lombax dimension to meet the other Lombax, to be with the other Lombaxes. And so, the game again opens in the demo we saw, right, of Clank being like, hey, I fixed it, and that's going to be the surprise for you at the end, that I can send you back to see your people. And as he tells Ratchet that, Ratchet has that moment in the demo we saw, right, where Ratchet's like, yeah, and he does like about that though, like he doesn't want to go, and then Nefarious shows up, steals the thing, it all goes to hell. And so it is this thing of like, wait, why doesn't he want to go? And like when they jump to this gameplay here that you're seeing right now, it's Clank and Rivet, and when they're flying in, Rivet and Clank have this conversation about this, where it's like, yeah, I found the thing, but he doesn't seem like he wants to do it. And she's like, oh, I'll go. Like, why? I don't know why he wouldn't want to go see other Lombaxes. I want to know what is keeping Ratchet in this world. Is it his relationship with Clank? Is it something else that's going on? Is it just that he's happy there? And that's something they talked about in the panel, right? That this is still Ratchet that you know and love, but this is an older, more mature Ratchet is what they're going with. Like, he has grown, and like even in the stuff we saw, right, in that opening Ticker Tape Parade, it is very much like, why are they throwing this for us? We haven't done anything recently. Like, we've kind of been not, just chilling out, like what's going on. And so I'm excited to see what his story is and to see them take him in a more mature way versus what they were talking about with Rivet, where Rivet is this resistance fighter, right? And she is incredibly reactive. She is incredibly impulsive, and that's what keeps her alive up until this point. And so I think having what feels like a Ratchet that's going to be older and maybe questioning his role in everything a little bit more versus a Lombax in Rivet that is just, doing everything she can to survive and take down, the
scrappy.
authoritarian. Yeah, exactly. The regime that's above them. That seems interesting. And I want to know what's going on with that, let alone the fact that I love. They showed it in what we were watching a little bit there, right? Of like in the opening, one of the people giving you the tour during the ticker tape parade is Skid McMarks, right? Who we know is like the extreme hoverboarder man, right? And so like when in Rivet's dimension, he's called Phantom, and he's completely different apparently. And like he's seen like his life's not been this extreme sports character.
Sports,
yeah, exactly. Esports, whatever. Extreme character. So it's like, what do they get to play with there, and how many other references will there be to what's going on there? I'm very interested in that. I'm very interested, like when the demo we saw, right, of Rivet having to fight Pierre, right, the French pirate who is Rusty Pete, but this version in their universe. Like, I love that this is like that just alternate reality of the things from the Ratchet universe twisted a little bit, and to see what these people are and why they got there, and then on top of that, what we're going to get out of that and how we're going to get out of that and what it means for Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, I would say like, whereas Ratchet and Clank 2016 was a movie tie-in game, and then they tried to make a joke about that being, this is a movie tie-in game to a movie tie-in, and like based on a game, like it got a little bit too meta, I think, whereas this seems like a more grounded thing of, I care about what Ratchet's motivation is. I care about meeting Rivet, and I want to see how they all come together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that makes 100% sense. And I think I'm right there with you in terms of the thing I like about it is that it seems like the setup is simple enough, but there's room for a lot of chaos and a lot of different things to happen. Like we've seen plenty of stories lately, in fact, about interdimensional travel and, going through different dimensions and meeting alternate versions of characters and all this stuff. Like that is I don't think that's anything that's like super high concept, or not even high concept, that's super weird or unique, but I think that it leaves a lot of room for, all right, cool, what fun things can we do with this from both a gameplay standpoint, but then also a storytelling standpoint. And one of the things that I've been trying to kind of manage in terms of my hype and excitement coming up on the game is like, all right, what do I expect to get out of this from a big release this year, or from a PlayStation first party release, right? Because I think my hype for this compared to what my hype was for The Last of Us or for Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like it's pretty different, but the longer you watch the demo, the more I found myself getting like to that extreme levels of, man, I can't wait to play this. Not necessarily to the point of like, this is going to change narrative, or this is going to have the same impact of like Last or anything, but just from, like I think them introducing Rivet in one of the first trailers we got forever ago, them introducing Rivet as a character had that cool thing of, okay, cool, we're going to get to play as a girl Lombax. And I think that from a representation standpoint seems really cool and really awesome. One thing that I want to shout out from the demo we just did is there was a certain part of the demo that highlighted the fact that Rivet had a prosthetic arm, and that was the thing that I hadn't noticed until this preview. Like I think I knew, but I never really thought about the fact that she had a prosthetic arm. And they kind of honed in on that and kind of turned that into a story beat in a way that I felt was super well done and super meaningful and super awesome. And for the preview to have moments like that in quite a few ways, like a couple of ways, had me very excited for what the rest of the game might do in terms of really building out this world as a world that I want to really get to know and get more familiarized with, because it seems like there's plenty of potential to do really cool things with this game and world that feels like a kid's game, or feels like a world that the whole family can get into. Sure. It feels like they're actually doing really cool things with it, which has me excited.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, there's a lot to unpack from what you just said, but it does nail it. And I think the most exciting thing about it, watching it, is I'm right there with you of, holy shit, I can't wait to do this. And I can't wait to go through all these weapons and use them in these fights and find every gold bolt and try to platinum this game and, run through it. And I think that hype comes from watching it, seeing the spectacle of it, seeing how good looking it is, and like, I'm always the guy who kind of forgets about music, sadly, unless it's amazing. Like the note I have here, right, is the score is rad. Like the music, just from what we saw and we're watching, is there. And I feel like what it seems to be doing is taking everything you expect out of a Ratchet and hitting it with 10 out of 10, if that makes sense. Whereas I think 2016 was like, oh, I enjoy the combat here and there, but but what about this and what about that? And this is obviously critiquing the 2016 game in 2021. I look at this and it looks to like every criticism we had of that game is being fixed or cranked up, even the things we enjoyed in this new one.
Yeah, something to touch on in terms of score, because one of the panels I went to was purely about score. I didn't take many notes on that one because it very much was them talking. It was them interviewing Mark Mothersbaugh, who is the composer for the game. He also is composer for Thor Ragnarok, and that was like the big thing that they kind of honed in on in that interview was like, yeah, there are. I'm just gonna talk in the first person, right? They're like our inspiration for the score. As we were making the game, we wanted it to be something that felt like it was Thor Ragnarok-ish, right? It had that. We wanted something that had this cosmic, fun aspect to it, and they really thought about Thor Ragnarok while making the game, which I think is a cool thing in itself. Yeah. But in their search for composers, they're like, all right, who can we get to compose this game? And they ended up reaching out. They're like, yo, screw it, let's just reach out to the composer of Thor Ragnarok and see what he thinks. And they're actually able to get him on the game. And they talked about how there is some stuff that might have been concepted for Thor Ragnarok that didn't make it into the final movie in some form, might be in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. They talked about a lot of that stuff. But from a score and music standpoint, I'm right there with you that as I was playing, I was like, damn, this is fucking cool. This is fucking sick. And hearing them talk about working with Mark for the game, I think one is really cool just from a shit, that guy worked on Thor Ragnarok, but then also, wow, they really get to see through their vision of having this thing give that certain type of energy that they were looking for.
Yeah. The other big thing, I mean, from a panel that you didn't get to go to because we split them up, right, that I want to talk about is from the designing Ratchet and Clank thing. This is me obviously being foolish, of course, and just not thinking through the fact that this is a PS5 game. What I thought was really cool is to hear them talk about the DualSense and how they're using it for this. And, what they were going big on was the adaptive triggers, right? And how that in games prior to, charge up a gun, right, you would have to hold down R2 and then release it to fire at its apex or something like that. Or how to get an alt fire out of a gun, blah, 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 blah. You have to hold this other button combination. Whereas now with the adaptive triggers, pulling halfway or pulling all the way through, they're getting more out of every gun and giving you different ways to use every gun. And so they put out the burst pistol, right, which you can go halfway with, it'll be slow and accurate, or if you go all the way, it's going to be fast and inaccurate. Like you're going to get way more bullets out, but they're going to be all over the place. Whereas if you sit there, there's going to be, a better shot of it. The other one was the Enforcer, right? Which is like this multi-barrel gun. It has two barrels on it, and so if you pull the first trigger, you're gonna fire just one of the barrels. Whereas if you pull all the way through two, you're gonna do a double shotgun blast, right? So like a double barrel shotgun, but having control over which one you do. And then the Negaton Collider is one you charge up, right? So you have to hold it and go. But now it's the idea of that you pull it halfway till the resistance charges up to where you want it, and then you pull through to fire it out. And it's like,
oh, that's awesome.
That sounds, I don't know. It's one of those like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining it because obviously they had audiovisual material to show you too. But it is that thing of watching where like, oh fuck, that's really cool. Like that is another level of what makes this a PlayStation 5 exclusive and how it's built to actually care about the controller and not be a gimmick for the controller, but rather be something that isn't, having to hold an alternate button to actually make the controller do what you want. It's still all on the same button. You just have different ideas to do and how you want to use it. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, no, I think that is super cool, and that's something that I wasn't thinking too heavily about as we were watching the preview, because when we watch gameplay, I don't think anybody really thinks about how it feels when you're using the adaptive triggers with the DualSense. Like we didn't realize how important that was to Returnal until we got our hands on Returnal, and we're like, oh snap, this is actually the core of the way the game plays. And if Ratchet, I hope that they're able to get it right, because it seems like the big PS5 games we've gotten so far have handled it a bit differently. Like Returnal has it so that, if you press down L2 halfway, you are doing your standard fire, and then you pull through to do your alt fire, which has a cooldown and all this stuff. But then we play Resident Evil 8, and the way Resident Evil 8 handles different guns and how that factors into the adaptive triggers is basically the L2 feels different, right? Like a big shotgun will have more pressure on the L2 button than your little pistol, which will just, you pull it regularly and it feels like it's light because of that. I am very curious and very excited to see how Ratchet and Clank handles that, because I think they kind of have the best of both worlds, where like Returnal definitely had a bunch of different types of guns, but because of the way the game, because of the alt fire system, I'm sure they didn't want to mess with that too much. But I wonder if Ratchet and Clank really is going to go all the way in terms of every gun feels different and it has a different method of control. I think there's really cool things you can do with that, because talking about the guns, there's like a lot of your favorite guns return. I mentioned that earlier. You got your Mr. Fungi, which is basically Mr. Zircon. You got your Glove of Doom, which is also in 2016 in previous games, where it's a grenade that you throw out that has a bunch of little guys that pop out of it that attack enemies, which is really fun. But then you have other things. You talk about the Enforcer, but then there's the Topiary Sprinkler, which
Dude,
I love.
What a cool fucking gun. We saw it in this demo. Go for it. I'm sorry, but that was one I wrote down. I'm like, this thing looks rad.
Yeah, no, it's basically a throwable grenade that'll freeze enemies in place. But the way that it freezes enemies in place is that it'll grow like topiary, like it'll grow.
Yeah, see, it looks like that. Barrett's showing right now. It makes them look. It turns them into like hedge art.
yeah, and it holds them in place. And in one of the talks that I went to for our preview, it was a talk all about animation. They actually talked about the topiary sprinkler, and one of the things they mentioned in it was that in figuring out the what type of guns, what type of new weapons they wanted to feature in the game, a thing that they think about a lot was, all right, what is the function, and then what is a unique spin we can put on it? Cool, we've seen ice grenades before. We've seen grenades that'll freeze enemies in place. What's a way we can do that exact thing, but have it be, give it more personality, or give it a twist, or give it some sort of different take? And that's how they came across that's how they came to the topiary sprinkler. Was like, okay, cool, we'll make plants instead of ice, which feels like a really creative way to do it, and that kind of filters through the other guns. But I'm
well,
curious
that was
see,
the thing, to piggyback off that. In one of mine, when they were talking about guns, they said that the weapon process is a 3-part process, right? It needs to have spectacle, strategy, and then humor / uniqueness. And I think like you just watch, right now the footage that's up, obviously Topiary Sprinkler, the killer app right now, but all the other weapons you see out there. Like, did they show you Ricochet? Did they talk about Ricochet?
No, but I remember watching Ricochet. That's the one I didn't understand it, so I didn't even take notes on it. But
so the idea is that
you shoot in the air and it just hits it.
Yeah, you shoot out a metal ball, right? That hovers and hits the thing and then hovers, and then you can pull the trigger again and again to have it hit. And there's a timing bonus to it that is because you're still controlling it. As it does, it'll get more damage, or if you hit the timing as you through the bonus. But it's this idea that you can shoot it and then you can run behind cover, and then you can keep going with the trigger and have the ball ricocheting off of it and doing it to get more and more out of it. And I think that's what they're talking about. What I think I've already said it. I know before we even talk about this part, the spectacle of this game. If they can get that in every weapon, I'm excited to explore every weapon.
Exactly, yeah, and I'm excited to see how DualSense functions with each of the weapons. That's the thing that I wouldn't have thought about with the Ratchet and Clank game, but now that we're here and we've used the DualSense and we know how cool it can be with this type of thing, I'm really excited to see how that pans out. I also want to shout out the Lightning Rod weapon, which is basically, depending on how far you've made it in Returnal, is the Electropylon driver weapon. It's very similar to that, where you shoot a bunch of like when you shoot shots of the weapon, it'll stick to the enemy, and then I guess the more you stick, the more damage it does, because it's basically triggering an electric shock between the different points that you've hit with the enemy, which is really cool. And so like there's that, and then I took notes on like half the weapons I saw, or maybe even most of the weapons I saw. There's the Drill Hound also, which is a grenade launcher, but it's a drill instead.
Yeah, it drills the enemy, or the thing that's going to attack into the ground, and like shoots out like a tremor and then comes up and attacks them. I thought that was dope. Yeah, hell yeah. And I think one of the things they talked about in my designing the world thing, right, was pocket dimensions. So like there's the big dimensions you're going to, and obviously going planet to planet, doing all these different things. But then there's these little pocket dimensions that you go into that they described it as stuff from all across the galaxy has been sucked into them, and it's stuck in space time, right? And so the idea is that you go into these smaller little dimensions that they're going to take a particular gadget that you use in the game all the time and be able to do different things with it in this section. So however we've been using the guns and gadgets outside of this to bring them in and use them in a different way to find, and this is where you'll find the different armor sets. So these are like optional challenge rooms basically that exist in a way the game doesn't exist, or that you don't usually use any of the stuff in, which I think is a fascinating way to go in there. And it's what we talk about like DLC, right? Where, okay, or how when I talk about Borderlands and Borderlands show with the devs, right? They always talk about the DLC being the thing of, okay, cool, like there aren't the same rules here. We can go into this and do something completely different with the characters or the gameplay and it sounds like that's what these pocket dimensions exist in, is going in there, using the hover boots in a way you don't usually use them, but then also finding armor sets, and then you can set the color palette, which I thought was dope for me, for each piece of the armor, so you can come up with your own unique combinations for the armors. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. The armors look awesome. There was one of the trailers. I forget if I think they posted this on Twitter or something, but them going through the different armor sets for Ratchet, it really reminded me of Spider-Man and the way that you have the different outfits for Spider-Man in those games. And I'm glad that they're doing that for this game too, because I love the idea of having a dope ass looking Ratchet that's like armored out and shit.
Yeah, and I love the idea of being able to customize it and make it your own and change it to look how you want to look, right? Because that's always the bummer of, like, I feel it's on the tip of my tongue because I was just playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, right? And it's that thing of like, man, I hate that these armor sets aren't mix and match. I hate that, they are, but they are very so locked and they're so few. Whereas like Odyssey with Cassandra, right? It was just this endless arsenal of customize what you want it to look like. So in here of like, cool, these are preset looks for the armor, but be able to change the color, make it your own, I like a lot.
Yeah. One thing. Go for it.
No, I wanted to call out, we had last episode, the one, the only, the blind gamer, Steve Saylor, on to talk about accessibility. And we talked about how, Returnal gets it wrong and what they could do better. And we asked him at one point, what did he think of the Ratchet stuff? And he was like, well, man, like I stopped and I went frame by frame and it looks really good. It obviously looks a lot like Naughty Dog in there. They talked a little bit about it in one of my panels there at the end, right? And what I liked about it was that, they're talking obviously about like, they want this game to be accessible to everybody. They want it to be from kids to the most hardcore fan who wants the biggest challenge on what you can do in there. And so they real briefly touched on obviously the difficulty stuff you could do, but then different options you could put on. And one of them was global time slowdown, which if you enable it, it's a shortcut on the D-pad that'll slow down the game. So if you're trying to beat a boss, if you're trying to make a jump, if there's something timing based that is too challenging for you, or like we're talking about with Steve, that you just can't physically make those moves that fast, you can toggle it on and toggle it off whenever you want to and go through and do it. And we asked, and because we had a bunch of great PlayStation people on this thing, will trophies be affected by it? They were like, that's a great question. They shouldn't be. This should be achievable with all the benefits on. So back to what we were talking about with Steve, right? And like, cool, if Returnal or Dark Souls or whatever hard game wanted to say, cool, we're going to lock you out of this trophy, but you can do whatever you want with it. He's like, that's still a bunch of problems. Insomniac seems to have addressed that with their accessibility of like, no, you can play the game however you want. You can get the trophies however you want. Like, it's there so you can actually get into the game, which obviously is something we've talked about and deserves a pat on the back for.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool, especially because Ratchet and Clank, as we mentioned before, is a super fast game, and it seems like this one is going to dial up the action a bit. And so them giving people that specific option, I think, is really cool.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see, I think, out of a PlayStation first party, right? We obviously talked so much and so many awards were won by Naughty Dog and Last of Us Part 2 for everything they did. It looks like, Insomniac's trying to follow that trend. I'm sorry, I cut you off before. You were going to jump to something you were excited about there?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So in one of my panels, they talked a lot about the power of the PlayStation 5, which I'm sure they did for one of your panels. It seems like so I did a panel for animation, which I think overlapped probably a lot with one of the panels you did. It sounds like. And so you feel free to chime in at all when it comes to the power stuff, because I think one of the panels you did was literally about the power of the PS5, right?
It was designing Ratchet and Clank for the PS5.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. But yeah, like one of the things they mentioned with that was they talked a lot about ray tracing in the animation panel I went to, and they talked about how they were able to really like dial in, and things like reflections on Clank meant a lot to them in terms of not only displaying the power of the PS5, but really improving the experience of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And so they talked about that. They talked about how, throughout the game you're gonna notice how beautiful Clank's reflections look, and they actually put a lot of focus into making sure his reflections are right, because he's made out of stainless steel, and the diffusion of light and reflections on stainless steel obviously is a lot different from other reflective surfaces. And so they talked about the process of making sure that the different types of surfaces, depending on the texture of those surfaces, actually reflect accurately, which I thought was just a really cool thing. Like it's fun doing these panels because half of the stuff is stuff that's like, cool, that applies to a preview. Then the other half is like, fuck, that's really nerdy. And I just appreciate it on a personal level. And so that was one of the ones where I'm like, I don't know how much I'm going to talk about that, but that was a really cool thing that I'm going to remember because technology.
While we're here, I mean, stuff to toss out, like you're talking about that they talked about what they can only do with the PS5, right? Was the idea that they're streaming it like Spider-Man. So it's like that idea where you're looking is what they're putting into the world, and behind you there's nothing, meaning that they can take what's in front of you. And obviously it's like, a nanosecond. If you start turning the camera, everything auto-populates. But it's the idea that they're able to pack so much stuff in there because it's not always behind you. It's always being obviously tracked where it is around you, but not rendering the entire time. And that they talked about how it's going to have those incredible fast loads of like, you hit the start button and you're playing the game in like 2 seconds or whatever. And then, the other thing is that, there's parts coming up where you're going to obviously be fighting in these different dimensions, right? And so they talk about like syncing the planets where you're jumping back and forth between two different versions of them, but it's changing as you go. Kind of what we, Xbox and Team Bloober, I think, promised a bit with the medium, but wasn't what we expected. It was there was game, definitely parts where you played in two different dimensions and went back and forth, but it wasn't at will like we thought it was all going to be. It seems like in this part, like they showed switch between them with this giant hammer swing that you're using. So you're hitting this hammer to switch back between it. So you're like, you can go back and forth between these worlds and fight these different things as you go.
They also talked about making Ratchet and the characters more expressive with the power of the PS5. They did like side by sides of Ratchet and Clank 2016, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and you can really see that like, oh snap, they have a lot more to work with the new technology, which is really awesome. And then they also talked about civilians and enemies being more responsive than ever, and also having the game be more populated in areas where there are enemies and civilians. And again, that they for a lot of this stuff, if not all this stuff, they would always thank the power of the PS5, which again, really cool. They talked about 3D audio also, and they talked about how that helps them get a better sense of space in the game. There's a quest in the game. I don't even know if it's a quest, but there's a moment in the game where you're looking for the club. I think it's called, I wrote it down, Club. There's a club in Nefarious City, basically, that you're looking for.
I think it's Club Nefarious, wasn't it? I thought it was.
Is it Club Nefarious? That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. But yeah, you're looking for that club, and 3D audio helps you locate it basically when you're walking around the city. And like, I'm sure you don't need the 3D audio. Like, I'm sure if you're playing on your TV, you'll just end up finding it. But if you have the headphones, if you have 3D audio available, then you will be able to tell where that club is based on the where the music is pumping from in that 3D audio, which again I think is really cool. They talked about plenty of things of that ilk, right, in terms of animations, expressiveness, wind affects fur, and so like that's a really cool thing. That's one of those things where if you told me that PS4 games didn't do that, I would have been like, do they not? I feel like I've seen this before, but they pointed it out, which seemed really cool. And then they also talked about how they added more life to secondary characters, and so like there are characters that you'll see that will either be like enemies or random NPCs that have a lot more detail to them. They talked about like items hanging from them, flaps in their clothes, things like that again, things that you probably wouldn't notice just playing a game regularly, but jumping into next gen and understanding what that does for developing a game. That's the thing that they really talked about. Was like, yo, yeah, we're able to do this now, and this is really cool. And them showing it off was really cool. And so I'm looking forward to all that.
I sent Baird here this Insomniac tweet confirming Club Nefarious and also making a great Falcon Winter Soldier reference of awesome. Ratchet and Clank dancing there. It's
a great gif. It
is. Believe it or not, blessing, Adeoye Jr. We weren't the only Kind of Funny members who went and saw this here game. The ex-bot himself, Paris Lilly, somehow snuck into this Ratchet and Clank presentation, and he wanted to be part of the conversation, but he had to go take care of his family because, of course, time zones. And so he wrote in with his 6 takeaways. Are you ready, Blessing?
I am ready.
Paris Lilly from the Kind of Funny Xcast, available each and every Saturday, 6 a.m., writes in. Number 1, the Rivet gameplay loop against Pierre and his band of pirates encourages you to use your entire arsenal of weapons to defeat enemies in fun and unique ways. Again, something we've touched on throughout this preview, but I think I talked about it, when we did the Ratchet PS4 review or whatever you want to call it, retrospective. It was that thing of me getting to the end and being like, oh, right, I'm supposed to use more than just my favorite weapons. And it was also that thing of, even when I was in the battles, not using every weapon, using very specific ones and being like, oh, well, I'm not really a fan of them, blah, blah, blah. The way we've seen Ratchet and Rivet play throughout this, I do want to experiment with all the weapons. And it's what we're talking about, to this perspective of, okay, here's the, the trinity of what we're looking for in terms of spectacle, strategy, humor. Like, I want to see what every gun does, and I want to see what every item does. And I think these demos we've gone through, you get that. You see that. You understand that in terms of like, yeah, I do want to try all this, right?
Yeah, I think that comes back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation of this Ratchet and Clank being the Ratchet and Clank you know and love. Yeah. Ratchet and Clank 2016 for me, playing it again this last time, that was the thing that I very much noticed of switching back and forth between all my weapons, and it not being a game where you're mastering through weapons and that's it. You really got to go back and forth. Every time you click that weapon wheel, the game slows down. You have to like switch to a new one, and really empty everything you got out. Which is really fun, and seeing them do that in this demo, and seeing them do that in a way that felt fresh, new, and different. Because like you could point that out and be like, cool, the last game had that, but the way that this game has it looks and feels different from the way that the last game had it, because it has new weapons and it has different ways it approaches combat scenarios and all this stuff, and so it looks really fun. And yeah, I look forward to them improving on that gameplay loop, because I think it is such a good one.
100%. Paris Lily's number 2 of 6 here goes like this. Jennifer Hale is on her A game as Rivet. Some of her best work and the overall voice cast and music is fantastic. We've already talked about music, obviously, and voice cast you'd expect to be great, and I think we're seeing that. Yeah. But yeah, that was one of my as soon as it ended and they opened it for questions after we had that demo, I had questions about Rivet. Of course, Jennifer Hale, FemShep, out there playing Rivet, doing a great job. Agreed. I think she's already super charming, super interesting in what it was. But I asked the team that were there, the writers for it and the animators, right, of what was going on and how much she brought to the character, right? And Lindsay, one of the animators there, said to me, like, I was like, when you write this character, when you make this character, when you start, designing the actual model for the character, how much does Jennifer Hale bring to it and how much is just on the page? And Lindsay said, quote, as an animator, we animate to the voice. She's absolutely a contributor to the character. And I think that shines through as just a little bit we've seen, right? And the way Jennifer gets wrapped around the character she is and it wraps around her and what you get out of it. Like, I can't wait to see what they do for the entire game with her.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Number 3 for Mr. Lilly was this. The instant loading of levels and streaming only what is needed at the moment via SSD creates unique game scenarios, hopping between rifts to fight enemies and during boss encounters. And yeah, like the technical feats of what you're seeing, it is that over and over again as we watch it, the not disbelief, but the fact of like, man, this isn't a cutscene. This is actually putting all this out there and you're actually getting it in real time.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I'll shout out as not even a critique, but as a hope, is that jumping between dimensional rifts is more fun than it looks to me, because I think it's a really cool idea.
Just the straight pull, like it's almost like a silent movie pull or whatever.
Yeah, like it looks like it happens very instantly, which is really cool because that's the SSD at work. But it seems very fixed in a way that makes me wonder: am I basically just ziplining to a point, right? Is it glorified ziplining? Is there going to be creative moments where I'm going back and forth and I feel like I am doing something that is beyond that? There was the one scene in the state of play that we saw where they were in a boss fight and Ratchet took, or might have been Rivet, one of them took a dimensional portal that took them to a new environment, and the boss fight continued in that new environment. That was the coolest function of the Rift I think we've seen so far. And so I hope there are more moments like that and more moments that feel as dynamic as that.
Real quick, too, I want to call out this fight right here as we're watching. This was a boss battle here with the Fixer, right? I thought it did a great job of showing, well, first off, there was one of the rift pulls you were just talking about, but the speed of it, the beauty of it, the stuff going on, and then also, I don't know how much, I guess you can't hear any, but probably the humor of this. Like, the Fixer stuff overall was super funny, and I'm excited to see more of that peppered throughout the game. Number 4 on Paris's rundown here was the dev team discussing how they take full advantage of the DualSense and 3D audio, sets this up to be the most immersive Ratchet to date. I think he's echoing what we've talked about here, right? Where I was talking about the controller, you were talking about the 3D audio. Like, it'll be fascinating to sit there. And this actually, you know what, Blessing? I'm kicking up my feet and asking you a question here. Mm-hmm. 3D audio, the old PlayStation 5 and everything to do. Are you playing most of your games with the headset, or are you playing on speakers?
I'm playing all of my games with the headset, and that's mainly because I'm playing on a monitor that doesn't have speakers, and so I have to play on a headset.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, but because of that, I do get when games use 3D audio, I do experience that. And the 2 games I've played so far that have used it, that have made, I think, a meaningful impact in my experience with the game, have been Returnal and Resident Evil 8. I think both those games have, specifically Returnal, had a phenomenal use of 3D audio. And so now that it's becoming more and more of a bullet point in these big AAA PlayStation games, it actually does get me excited. I do see that. I'm like, oh, let's go. Okay, let's see how this works.
Yeah, I asked because like I've been playing a lot of stuff at launch. I played on the headset, and then now that I'm here in the new space and I can play at night and not wake up my wife because she's in the next room, I was playing Returnal off the soundbar, and I was just like, oh yeah, I wonder how much I'm losing by not having the headset on anymore and how it's going.
Yeah, and I don't think I wouldn't even say you're losing anything per se. I think it's all additive in the way that, like hearing the creatures in a certain corner from Returnal. And the first few hours of me playing, I was like, oh shit, like I really feel like I'm in it. I'm all immersed in all that shit. But I'm sure if I played it on my TV, I wouldn't give a fuck.
Number 5 from Paris. Love how the Pocket Dimensions act as side missions, optional but rewarding. Agreed, echoing what I said earlier.
Agreed.
And number 6, visually, this is the best looking video game I have ever seen and mimics mid-2000s Pixar quality.
I'll go above that, and because we've been doing Pixar in review, and I've been watching along, even just for the fun of it. We're getting to 2010 Pixar quality.
That was my thing of
if you go back to Pixar mid 2000, they look great for the time, but Ratchet and Clank now is taking it definitely a step above that.
Mm-hmm.
Ratchet's always been that game that I remember we do stuff for, especially a Crack in Time. Be like, it looks like a Pixar movie. You know what I mean? Like that's when you're talking about something that is an animated proper. You know what I mean? It feels like if it was going to be a movie, it's going to be an animated movie, right? A CG movie. This one, watching it, I think just looks spectacular. And I, even not being a big Pixar person, I think you talk about mid 2000s Pixar. Yeah, that's that.
You're
what you think?
Yeah.
You think these movies looked like back then, and then you go and watch one, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how far Pixar's come, let alone the fact that this video game looks like that and plays like that.
Yeah, games looks incredible. I every time we see it, I'm like, cool. I'm already sold.
Yeah, I don't need to see more of it.
But I keep getting shown more, and I'm like, all right, this game looks beautiful. I'm there.
That's what I think is fascinating about it, is that we're seeing so much of it, and I'm not to the point yet of okay, don't show me anymore, or all right, I'm sick of seeing this game. What they're showing is marketed to the correct way of making me go, man, I can't wait to play this. Even seeing it, I'm like, I can't wait to feel what this feels like, or not miss the cutscene they're skipping right now to get into it.
Mm.
Closing thoughts, Blessing.
One last thing I'm gonna shout out is there when one of my panels, the animation panel, they said, and I quote, each pixel in the pixelizer, and I should clarify that the pixelizer is the gun that turns your enemies into pixels.
Yeah.
Each pixel is a perfect ray tracing cube, so you can go into photo mode and check it out. And I thought that was a really cool thing that I should end on when you asked what are my final thoughts. And so there you go. Keep that in mind when you go into photo mode in the game. Check out the pixelizer cubes, ray trace them, all that stuff.
My final thought, of course, is that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart looks fantastic. I can't wait to play it. And I think these pocket dimensions, if it's not just in a cutscene, these pocket dimensions serve as the perfect place to show Jak and Daxter. Still sticking to that prediction. I'm still sticking to that prediction that that we are going to get into the Jak and Daxter dimension at some point. Just for a second,
I think you're a madman,
just as an Easter egg.
I incepted that idea into your brain, Greg, and you know what? Let's fucking do it.
You're going to go in there, you're going to bump into a precursor egg. What is this? Get zapped out of it. That's all it is. You know what I mean? Boom, bada bing, we got a video game.
God.
You're a madman.
I am. But you know what they say about madmen?
Give us the mads, man.
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, obviously coming out this June. We can't wait for it. June 11th. Obviously, there'll be a ton more coverage here on youtube.com/kindafunnygames. So make sure you stay tuned to PSILOVEPHOTOMODE, the Kinda Funny Games cast, every other video game thing we put up. Twitch.tv, I don't know. We do a lot of coverage in games dailies and things like that. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll remind you of patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. You can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames usually to watch us record this show live. Of course, to get the post show we do for each and every episode of PS I Love You. But more importantly right now, to get the show ad-free. But guess what, Jack? You didn't go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So let's hear about this week's sponsors from me in a different sweatshirt. This podcast is brought to you by Purple. As the world becomes increasingly uncomfortable, we're all looking for as much comfort as we can get. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to comfort, Joey Noelle won't stop talking about her Purple mattress. It's soft, it's comfortable, and it keeps her cool when she needs to be cool, and it keeps her warm when she needs to be warm. That's because the one thing you can count on in this uncomfortable world is how comfortable your Purple mattress is. Purple is comfort reinvented. Only Purple has the Grid, a stretchy gel material that's increasingly supportive for your back and legs while cushioning your shoulders, neck, and hips. I don't know how it does it. It's just fantastic. Because of how it's designed, the Grid doesn't trap air. Air actually circulates and flows through it, so you'll never overheat. The Grid bounces back as you move and shift, unlike memory foam, which remembers everything. That's why memory foam has craters and divots. Again, Joey's been using this for a while now. She loves it, still uses it, has no plans to ever change because she loves that Purple mattress. And right now, you can love yours too. You can try your Purple mattress risk-free with free shipping and returns. Financing is available too. Purple really is comfort in an uncomfortable world. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. Go to purple.com/kindafunny10 and use the promo code kindafunny10. That's purple.com/kindafunny10. Promo code kindafunny10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Purple.com/kindafunny10. Promo code kindafunny10. Terms apply. Our next sponsor is HVMN. Trying to lose a little weight, sleep a little better, and not feel so groggy during the day? Health via modern nutrition can help you do all of those things with a few small keto-friendly choices to improve your metabolism throughout the day. The average American consumes around 17 teaspoons of added sugar each day. If you put that into your body today, it's the foundation for who you will become tomorrow. Start reaching your goals by being aware of and cutting out unnecessary sugars from your diet. HVMN is obsessed with helping you reach those goals through modern nutrition, powering your metabolism with less sugar and more ketones. HVMN is a nutrition company that takes the mystery out of counting macros. They're results-driven, modern nutrition for modern lifestyles with less sugar than competitors. Their products provide lifestyle and habit upgrades that help their customers become healthier and better versions of themselves. By using real organic ingredients, HVMN has made keto and lifestyle improvements easy with healthy and low sugar options that are great for you and deliciously satisfying. HVMN offers single items like MCT oil, keto food bars, and keto collagen powder, or you can grab a kit that includes all the essentials at an everyday discount. The one and only big dog, Kevin Coelho, has decided to try to eat better. He has this on his desk right now. He just started it. They're sending him what he needs. It's getting delivered right to his door. It's super easy. Right, Kevin?
Absolutely. I got the one with all of them in there. And let me tell you, it even comes with a night sleep one called Yawn that I take, and it helps put me to bed. It's better.
Okay. You taking that in the middle of the podcast?
Nope.
Okay. I'm watching you. I'll see if you're napping. I'll catch you. Whether you're curious about keto, want to improve performance, weight loss, or boost brain and body wellness, HVMN will have a non-intimidating solution for you. HVMN is modern nutrition for modern lifestyles, and their new kits make it easy to embrace healthy living and quickly feel the difference. Right now, HVMN is offering our listeners an additional 10% off your first order when you go to hvmn.com/kindafunny. Embrace healthy living today. Go to hvmn.com/kindafunny for 10% off your first order. That's hvmn.com/kindafunny for 10% off today. And the final sponsor of the day is Titan. For far too long, Wall Street has neglected the average investor, giving out the same old generic advice like buy index funds. Meanwhile, for the ultra wealthy, they get access to the premium investment strategies and resources. That divide didn't sit well with Titan, so they built an active investment management platform that's accessible to everyone. Thanks to Titan, now everyday consumers can have their capital invested like a world-class hedge fund. To get started, download the Titan app. There, Titan delivers daily updates, in-depth videos, deep dive reports, podcasts, and more. Titan ensures that clients know the what and the why behind their investments. words. It's a super simple to use app, super simple design. Tim was telling about it the other day. Unlike conventional investing apps, Titan doesn't invest their clients into publicly traded index funds or mutual funds. Instead, Titan has an in-house investment team that actively manages investment strategies designed to outperform the market. Their goal is to compound your wealth on average of 15% or more annually, which implies the potential of doubling at least every 5 years. Titan manages hundreds of millions of dollars for 25,000 plus clients. With Titan, you get front row seats to your money, helping you become the smartest investor you've ever been. To start investing with Titan today and get 3 months free, visit titanvest.com/kfgames. That's 3 months free of investing that's 3 months of investing for free at titanvest.com/kfgames. Titan, first class for your capital. Blessing, tell me about the PlayStation updates.
Yeah, so we just got done with the big old conversation of Ratchet and Clank and Insomniac, and so let's switch gears. Let's talk about Insomniac. Greg, should Insomniac revisit Sunset Overdrive? I asked this question because IGN reported that Sony has registered a trademark for Xbox exclusive Sunset Overdrive. This is Jordan Alleman. It looks like Sony has registered a trademark for the previously Xbox exclusive shooter Sunset Overdrive. Spotted by Nibel on Twitter, the trademark was registered at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in late April. It doesn't confirm anything, but it is interesting given that Sunset Overdrive was initially exclusive to Xbox One upon its release in 2014. The game then came to PC in 2018 before Sony acquired Insomniac as a first-party PlayStation studio in 2019. Greg, first, do you think this means anything? The fact that they're patenting it. Two, should they do anything with it?
First, no, I don't think it does. When I read this one on Games Daily, somebody wrote into "You're wrong," but I've never seen it reported on. Of like, this is a non-story because Insomniac started the filing before they were even purchased by Sony. Now that it's being finished, it's just the fact that all right, cool. Now Sony obviously owns them, so it goes to them, kind of thing. And that totally makes sense. Of obviously, you got to protect your trademark, something you have. This game exists and it is their IP. Obviously, now you got to take care of it. So I don't read into it that, oh man, Sunset Overdrive's coming to PlayStation. Oh man, this is what's going on. I just think it was a thing tied to them putting it on Steam back, year now, whatever it was. And then of course now the idea that it's all tied up together. And then number two is I don't think they should. No, I don't think they need to come back. Sunset Overdrive is different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And Sunset Overdrive to me was this great thing to show off the Xbox One and the run up to Xbox One. I played a bunch of different previews of it. I did preview coverage for it at IGN. And then it was, cool when it dropped and it didn't set the world on fire for reviews. I was on vacation or something. It dropped and I immediately went to Japan, I think. And when I came back and reviews were like, yeah, it's fine. It's, you like the preview. It's the preview. And I was like, oh, I liked the preview, but I didn't like the preview enough to want 8 hours of just what I played. I want it to evolve. I want it to change. And so there is this audience that has a very soft spot for it because it's a fun game and it's a beautiful game and it controls really well. And I think especially as we watch what we just saw with Ratchet, Rift Apart, of these crazy, linking together your moves to grind on the rails to jump off the thing. You look at the locomotion of Spider-Man, like so much of that DNA is inside of Sunset Overdrive. But I think we're in such a different place now with PlayStation owning Insomniac that is Sunset Overdrive going to move the needle if you put it out? Is PlayStation, you think about everything we've talked about in the past few weeks of how PlayStation is playing the first parties, what they're putting out as exclusives. Is PlayStation in need of, hey, cool, here's this game that isn't bad, isn't amazing. It's just a game that, is an 8 somewhere in there, whatever. People, like it or don't like it or they missed it. Like, are they hurting that they're like, what we should do? Put this out on PlayStation 5 as well? No. Like, I don't think it's going to move enough units to justify the cost of porting it over and doing all this different stuff.
Really? See, I think porting it over would be the move. I'm sure there are folks out there who are thirsting for a Sunset Overdrive 2, but I don't think that would be the move for them, especially when you look at the projects that Insomniac does work on. Like, they work on Spider-Man and they work on Ratchet and Clank. And I think between those two and between other potential projects they could work on, I don't think a Sunset Overdrive 2 would be the move. I think there's just way more potential and way more fervor for the other projects. But, I think porting Sunset Overdrive just as an additional game for the PlayStation audience to have, especially if you go, cool, we're just going to port it over to PlayStation 5 so that it can be this upgraded version with ray tracing and 60 FPS, 4K, all the bells and whistles of next gen. I think you do that so you can say you have the best version of this game, and maybe even not say that because that doesn't matter at this point for Sunset Overdrive. You just give it to the PlayStation audience in some form, because now you have this IP, you have this game that's sitting around. I'm sure porting it compared to a lot of other things for PlayStation still work to do for sure, but I think it's worth doing just to have an additional game for the audience. I think that would be the move, but beyond that, I don't think there's much to do with Sunset Overdrive.
My thought process on not doing the port for it, because obviously, yeah, you could do the money, right? Right now, it has an 81 on Metacritic. It's got a 90 at IGN for the review they did on it, right? 80 at Giant Bomb. Like, you could do that, but what is the narrative? You know, I don't understand the narrative behind putting it out. And it's like, okay, I guess money to an extent, but hey, here's this game from Insomniac that used to be Xbox. So you're already talking about the fact that you're getting it super late. Okay, we don't want to go that way. Here's this game from Insomniac that isn't as good as Ratchet or as good as Spider-Man. Like, okay, why would we put out a game that right now Insomniac, to the PlayStation audience, understandably and justifiably is untouchable? Spider-Man Miles Morales, about to have Ratchet Rift. I mean, like, these are, I mean, I have not reviewed or played Ratchet, but it looks like it's going to be fucking banger. Like, do you want to get in the way of that with also like, here's this other game, and they play it like, oh, well, this is a weird out of time open world game that was impressive as base, and I know it wasn't exactly, but basically, or no, it wasn't exactly an Xbox launch game, right? It wasn't day and day.
No, it was the year after. It was 2014.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So this, oh yeah, because it got delayed. It was supposed to be.
Yeah, it was launch window, I guess we could
Here's
say.
this 2014 Insomniac, and like it's the other thing there of like, it's not going to hold up. Like a 2014 game, and especially for open world traversal and all that stuff, isn't going to feel as good as it should 7 years later, or would.
You don't think so? I think that's the time. Knowing Insomniac, because I played a little bit of Sunset Overdrive on Xbox, and if it looks and feels like an Insomniac game, and I think Insomniac games tend to just have a better feel than so many other games because they have that down. A lot of their games are about traversal and how you get around and all that stuff. Yeah. And, you know, I don't think it will age perfectly, but if you do a remaster of it and put it on a PS5, I'm sure it could sit by similar games and people would be fine with it, or people would be excited to try it out. I think the reason you do it would be to test the waters and see, like, all right, what is the interest in Sunset Overdrive? Because I would say, I'm curious, maybe Barry, you could look this up. What is Sunset Overdrive's Metacritic versus Ratchet and Clank 2016's Metacritic?
Ooh.
Because I think
81 for
Sunset.
Sunset, yeah.
81 because I think you could make the case that you could get Sunset Overdrive to that similar levels of hype for as a Ratchet.
85
because
for a 2016 Ratchet.
85. Okay, so that's what 4 Metacritic points above it. Like, so I don't think
it's in the same ballpark. Essentially,
I wouldn't say Ratchet is leagues ahead of Sunset in terms of quality. I think in terms of fans and people that are invested in the franchise, because there's been so many Ratchet games. Sure. Yes, but you know, if you did want the option of building something up, you know, to test the waters to see, hey, is Sunset Overdrive 2 worth doing, and try to get that in the same place as something like Ratchet, I could see it, but it is that thing of, well, you already have Spider-Man.
Here's my thing. In 2014, when you're hurting for Xbox One games, right? Like, the reviews, they're positive again. Like, you know, I'm just using the Metacritic thing, but US Gamer, 90. A welcome change of pace from the dour, serious AAA games we've been playing all year. Insomniac asks, who do you want to be? With tons of customization options, some great weapons, and a very physical way to get around the city. The game feels a bit light in the content department, but it's undeniably fun. Like, I feel like as we start, like, there was another one here. Os Gamers gave it an 88. Sunset Overdrive may not be the deepest experience, but it's a game that shows evidence of immaculate craft. Like,
it sounds like Ratchet and Clank 2016 to me.
No, you're crazy.
You can use those same descriptors.
What do you mean, Greg? If you like, kind of had that same sentiment when you guys talked about 2016.
Because I'm saying. And for me, like, obviously I prefer Ratchet and Clank just because I like Ratchet and Clank as a series and as the type of game it is. But the point I am making is that I think they are similar levels in terms of I guess in terms of game quality is what I'm saying. Like, I think if you put feelers out there and you wanted to go hard with Sunset Overdrive 2 and make it a core Insomniac PlayStation franchise first party thing, I think you could do it, but that's also like a lot of work that I don't think they would do, because why?
I think it's a more uphill battle to get it to Ratchet and Clank status, like you're talking about. That's all I'm saying, and and so that's the difference for me in terms of like the investment to it. If I'm being told, if I'm a betting man and I was like, how do you make this worth PlayStation's wild? I would say I wouldn't remaster it as much as port it, right? Not worry about the ray tracing, not worry about that stuff, and then I'd PlayStation Plus it right away. Of like, hey, Sunset Overdrive, here it is, PlayStation Plus. If you don't want to do it, it's $30 or whatever on the store. You can get it, but like that would be more of a, hey, yeah, this game's old, but we want to honor Insomniac's roots and maybe see, if people care about it.
Yeah.
But I say no, don't even worry about it. Just worry about Spider-Man and Ratchet and whatever PlayStation VR 2 game you're working on.
Greg, we have one more PlayStation update for you. I know there are many folks who are listening to this show that are like, hey, when might I get my hands on a PlayStation 5?
Not fucking soon. That's when.
Don't hold your breath, because this is from Takashi Mochizuki at Bloomberg. Apparently, according to PlayStation 5 supply is going to be tight even until next year. Sony warned a group of analysts the PlayStation 5 will remain in short supply through 2022, suggesting the company will be constrained in its ability to boost sales targets for its latest games console. While reporting financial results in late April, the Japanese conglomerate said it had sold 7.8 million units of the console through March 31st, and it is aiming to sell at least 14.8 million units in the current fiscal year. Chief Financial Officer Hiroki Totoki said, quote, I don't think demand is calming down this year, and even if we secure a lot more devices and produce many more units of the PlayStation 5 next year, our supply wouldn't be able to catch up with demand, end quote. That report from Bloomberg followed a report that came out earlier about how there's a PS5 redesign in the works. This comes from Alex Newhouse at GameSpot. The PlayStation 5 may be getting a new design in 2022, but it likely will be limited to its internal architecture. Due to the global semiconductor shortage, the PS5's CPU might get swapped to help scale up production. And that's the thing we've been talking about for a while. The semiconductor shortage has been affecting all sorts of different types of hardware technology. The PS5 has been affected by it. The Switch, PCs, pretty much any type of like technology that uses a CPU basically that you're in search of is being affected by the semiconductor shortage. And so with all this combined, Greg, we got a question from Austin, who wrote into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can, and says, hi gang, does Sony saying PS5 supply issues will continue into 2022 concern you at all regarding the long-term health of the PS5 in terms of developer/install base? When I say developer support, I don't mean games, but more so PS5 specific features like haptic feedback, game cards, etc. Greg, how much does this shortage make you worry?
Worry isn't the right word. It's more the fact that I think worry is maybe the word. It's not that I'm worried like it keeps me awake at night, but I would think the concern would be the fact that, cool, you still can't get enough PlayStation 5s out there as fast as you want to, so you're going to see more of these cross-gen games, where we are going to see more things that are PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, or just PlayStation 4 that you then play on your PlayStation 5. I think that baton pass-off to the next generation will have happened faster in the past because of the fact that, all right, cool, there's an audience ready to go. Now, there's always the counter-argument of people with PlayStation 5s are going to be desperate to play PlayStation 5 games. Again, it's what we talked about already this year, right, of Outriders hits because guess what? It's a AAA next gen game. Let's everybody go play it. Returnal making all sorts of waves because it's a fantastic game. But I would imagine the attach rate to the PlayStation 5 is going to be pretty dope on it because people want to play PlayStation 5 games. So it is this argument in hedging your bets on what you can make work, but obviously for a Ubisoft, for an Activision, for a big corporation that's trying to make as much money off their games as possible, being able to be on the one that has more than 118 million units shipped right now is where you want to be, rather than, all right, well, we can get a whole bunch of the PlayStation 5s I think that have sold.
Yeah. To Austin's question, I think, yeah, you will see more cross-gen games like Greg is talking about. You will see probably less games use or support heavily the haptic feedback and like the specific features of the PS5 because they're trying to work for both gen, because the install base might not be there as much as with the PS4. But I Greg, I'm with you that worry isn't the word for me. Like, I'm not worried about it because I think like so far from what we have gotten quite a few games that have come out that are cross-gen or PS4, and then we've gotten a few PS5 exclusives, and for the ones that we've gotten, they've used the DualSense and all that stuff. enough so that I do feel like I'm getting my money's worth. Like I don't feel like I am missing it in games that I'm playing in cross-gen, and even for games that are cross-gen, like Resident Evil 8 that we just got, like there are a few PS5 or DualSense features that are present, and I don't when I'm playing that game, I don't feel myself missing it. I'm not playing that game wishing that it was doing what Returnal is doing, and I think that comes down to the thing of each game is kind of its own, and I'm going into Returnal with the expectation that it's a Sony first party PS5 game, whereas I'm going into Resident Evil Village with the expectation that it is a third party game. And even throughout the PS4 generation, we have plenty of games that would maybe support the touchpad, maybe not support the touchpad, right? And a lot of that will come back to, all right, is this game also on PC and Xbox, or is this game also on the Switch? Because those consoles don't have the same features, and so you can't really have that same level of expectation of support for these features because of cross-platform.
And that's always the thing, what you're talking about is cross-platform. You're going to see, or third-party games, you're going to see varying degrees of, are we using the triggers? Are we using the haptics here? Whereas, I think if this is the conversation and like justifying it and making you feel like you're not starving, you turn your attention to PlayStation and you turn your attention to, all right, cool. Are you giving me PlayStation 5 experiences that justify the price tag and give me the cool thing? And, what we're talking about with Returnal so many times these past weeks has been this conversation of Returnal, while it is some kind of hybrid between an arcade game and a roguelike and a third-person shooter, it also feels, even though you want to look at that as a smaller experience, or some people want to make it out to be a smaller experience, it feels like a PlayStation 5 game. The controls, the audio, the feedback, everything in the graphics, obviously, are in performance and loads. All that's being wrapped up to where people are like, oh man, $70? And the people who are reviewing it and talking about it are saying, well, yes, but it is more than what you're expecting if you're hearing it's a roguelike from Housemarque. Like, there is a secret sauce to that. There is a magic to it. There is a PlayStation 5 thing to it. So you start then looking at, okay, cool. Even if this supply chain, right, is getting all screwed up and we're not doing the thing and you're not going to get as many third parties approaching it, is PlayStation still spending money with developers to make sure they are? What does Kena Bridge of Spirits look like? What does Jet the Far Shore look like in terms of how they're using the PlayStation 5 features in a way they couldn't get anywhere else and we couldn't get anywhere else? Where even if I was playing this on PlayStation 4, like think of Miles Morales, right? Or Bug Snacks even, where, there's a PlayStation 4 version of that. And I don't think neither of those games have a moment where I was like, whoa, the DualSense, like what a thing. But I remember the load times. I remember playing Bug Snacks on PlayStation 5 next to Jen, where she was playing it on PS4 and seeing a load screen I never saw on PlayStation 5 because it just didn't exist. And the same thing with Miles, right? Of being right into the game and ready to go. And so are you justifying to me why the PlayStation 5 exists and why I'm buying a different version of that game? And yes, I wish we were in a perfect world wherever you get PS5, and all sorts of developers and publishers were like, cool, we're making the switch over. We're winding down PlayStation 4. This is where we're going, but we don't. But is my purchase being justified? If you look at something right now where it's like, Friday, Mass Effect Legendary Edition comes out, and we're all like, cool, when they announced it, like, oh, wait, there's no PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X version. They're like, no, so we're doing it for the other ones. You're like, I get it, but that sucks. Like, I wanted the big one, right?
Yeah. Greg, I think I said that last one was our last PlayStation update, but I forgot that it was actually one big update that happened.
Another one.
Wow, you're really preparing for that DJ Khaled stream.
I'm ready. I know that, and I know Megan Fox. That's all I got. That's all I know.
Hell yeah. Wait, you just know Megan Fox exists?
Jennifer Body. I remember that movie. I went and saw Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body. I won't make that mistake tomorrow. I'm sorry. I also saw two of the Transformers films she was in.
She was also in a season or two of New Girl. She was really good in that.
Oh, really? I didn't watch that.
Yeah, so some would argue that's the best part of that show when the main character left, so she came in to fill that spot essentially.
Wait, really? So I've been hearing a lot of good things about. I've heard many great things about New Girl over the years, but I never really gave it a shot. And now that I'm here in 2021, I've started regretting it a little bit because I've been seeing clips pop up on TikTok. From New Girl, because TikTok just loves uploading shows to the platform, even though it's a minute-long platform.
Yes, you've seen the one where they have the conversation about towels. I've seen that one a lot.
I've seen that one. The one where they say they're like, you've been using my towel.
Yeah.
Great show. I think
every time I see clips, I'm like, damn, this show seems great.
It's a great ensemble cast. The main character, Jessica Day, I think is her name.
Isn't it Zoe Deschanel?
Yeah, but
I see. You said the character name.
The character Jessica Day is like. she gets frustrating, I would say, and especially being married to someone who is also a teacher, where she is a teacher in the show. It's like just a lot of things she does. It's just like, all right, it's a little frustrating to watch. But the ensemble cast, fucking awesome, and they're hilarious, and it's a good crew.
That's my thing. Is there seems to be, I don't know the name of the characters, but there is a like a duo, maybe a trio of dudes in the show that seem hilarious. It's like the black dude and there's a white dude that have a funny energy to them that makes me want to check it out.
They have such a great rapport between the three of them, and then like in the pilot, it was oh shit, I'm losing his name, but it was like someone else who like only did the pilot, and then he was replaced by someone else, but then he comes back like a couple seasons later as kind of like a season regular at some point.
Oh, Coach.
Coach.
Yeah, Damon Wayans Jr., right?
Yeah. Like he only came in for an episode, and then he left for like a few seasons because
then they went and did Let's Be Cops.
Yeah, exactly. And then he came back to the show for like a season or two, and it's fucking hilarious. Yeah, like Coach, Winston, Schmidt, and Nick like play off of each other so fucking well. They get so absurd with some of the episodes. It's
a great show.
It's fun.
I might check it out. But Greg, the one story I forgot to bring up here was the story about PSVR. You talked about this one on KFGD, and I don't need to go through the whole thing, but I basically want to do like a PSVR check-in because we haven't talked about PSVR in a while on the show. At least it feels like where are you at with PSVR 2, and what are like, if you can sum up what the latest update is with PSVR.
So today, Upload VR's Ian Hamilton put up a piece where they had a bunch of reliable sources tell them a whole bunch of stuff about PlayStation 5 VR. And let me tell you, Blessing, it sounds fucking great. All right.
Really? Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. So it's got the whole inside-out tracking. So don't worry about the camera. So it's looking down at you. So like, we don't have to worry about that. It's the one USB-C cable to the thing. We already knew it was one cable, but the fact now they're like, oh, it's one USB-C thing makes me think about how small like the Oculus Quest Link or the Oculus Link cable is for Oculus Quest to a tower like that. The resolution is better than Oculus Quest 2, but hold on, let me pull it up. It's better than Oculus Quest 2,
like it's
but
4K.
It's less than HP Reverb G2, which they say is the current market leader. Yeah, it's the what they put. They put the details include the resolution of 4,000 by 2040 pixels, which is 2,000 by 2040 per eye. A lens separation thing. The gaze tracking capable of foveated rendering. Foveated rendering. Are you familiar with this?
No, I have no idea.
I'd asked the chat today, and they were like, "Oh,
fancy."
It is fancy." And what they're doing with this and talking about the rendering, right, is it's a lot what we were just talking about with Ratchet, where rather than spin the camera and only render what's in front of you, this tracks your eye. And then also when you move your head, but it's tracking your eye, so it's putting the detail there and like not around there, so you can get better stuff in front of you and not a cost of trying to render the entire environment at all times.
Gotcha.
So it's one of them very, very tech things. Then it's got direct haptic feedback they were talking about with the headset, which I was like, why the fuck would somebody do that? And somebody I don't want my head getting shaken up. And somebody in You're Wrong was like, actually, it could help with motion sickness, but they didn't link that. They just said that, and I guess I believe them because why not? And I just told you. But basically what I'm saying is I am stoked about this. This sounds like a whole bunch of fixes for things we didn't like about PlayStation VR 1 or that we knew needed to change. But if it's just one cable, because again, even when they mentioned cable, I was still in picturing the box and all this other stuff. If it's that, if it's got no more camera to have to worry about being in front of eye lines for.
Now, have you accepted that it's not going to be backwards compatible yet?
No, I have not accepted that. Right, I refuse to accept that.
You have some time. Greg.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, you have some time to accept that.
We had this conversation before. Right? I just find it so hard to believe.
There's definitely going to be games that it's going to be interesting. They'll probably do that thing where it's like they're going to have to put out games of like it's Iron Man has a PSVR 2 patch or something like that, right? Where it gives you a different control mechanism or control option for it.
That's my thing is I think they're like the essential games or the big games or the games that have cross-platform releases between PSVR and Oculus and other stuff are probably going to either have updates or new versions that'll come out very quickly. Like I think Beat Saber will for sure.
Oh God, yeah, they'll have that fixed.
They'll have that fixed day one where it's like, okay, cool, we have an update and we know how to do this because we developed it with this tracking in mind for other platforms. But I just need to get there. I got to get there and see. Once I get my hands on it, then I'll be able to like. No,
okay. you raise a great point, and we've talked about it before. Of like, it's not. Didn't we? We did talk about this before, and I was like, no. There was like somebody who said you can patch it in that to tell the games to look for it.
We called somebody from Upload VR, I think.
Oh, David, right? Yeah. No, we didn't. We tried to call David. He was doing a thing, so he texted back.
Yes.
That's right. Hold on. Let me.
Yes.
I still have my text, probably. Let's check one.
Yeah,
David, of
'cause he was
course,
on
now
your
works at
side.
Facebook. Yeah.
We were very much on different sides of this conversation.
And I was like, no, they're gonna be able to do it.
He's more of an expert, and so I believe
we go to
him, but I
March
also don't.
22nd. March 22nd, we were recording this show, it looks like. And I said, do you think the PSVR 2 will be backwards compatible with PSVR 1 games? Different hardware setup, right? He goes, I think it will be. The only prickly point is the games that were tracked by the DualShock 4, but they could just approximate the new controllers for it. I said, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, that was another thing. Yeah, the DualShock 4. All right, we'll see. We'll see.
You have to. You need it. It's got a library. Let's have the same library.
You got to make sacrifices. If the sacrifice is, hey, we got to stick with the setup we have, or we just got to leave behind all the games, I think the choice is leave behind all the games.
Day one, people are going to want to play Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. All right, they're going to be all clamoring for it. They need to get out there.
I'm sure they will.
What is your temperature check on this? Well, no. What is your on the details I just shared with you? Does that get you going?
I mean, half the stuff you mentioned is stuff that kind of goes over my head because I'm not too much of a VR technological person, but for it sounds exciting. Like it having higher resolution, I think just inherently sounds exciting. Sounds like playing PlayStation VR. I think there is a noticeable things aren't as crisp as they could be to it. If you're telling me that the games are going to look better, I'm down. If you're going to tell me the games might have higher, I don't think they mentioned FPS here, but I think this is just me projecting.
You'd assume so, yeah.
Yeah, like with the PS5, if you're going to have higher FPS, then let's go. The haptic feedback stuff. One, if it helps with motion sickness, cool, but also anything that helps with immersion, I'm down for. And haptic feedback in the helmet itself, if it's as quality as the DualSense, I think that sounds cool. And the stuff that we already knew, like inside out tracking, also awesome. Everything we've heard about PSVR 2 sounds great. Aside from it still having a cable, which is probably necessary. It's probably impossible to get rid of that cable, knowing that so much of the processing is going on in the actual box itself. But outside of that, I'm super hyped for PSVR 2. Every time I get reminded of it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's happening. That's gonna be awesome when it gets here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
PlayStation can't make enough PS5s, but they're going to have these PSVR 2s ready to roll 2022.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Greg, a thing I'm looking forward to also are games coming out during the week. And so that's why you have PlayStation Picks, where we highlighted a few of the cool looking games coming to PSN this week. We got a long list of big hitters, starting with Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. That came out on PS5 and PS4 on Monday. We got Destiny 2 Season. I do not like it.
You hate it.
I gave it another chance last night, and I just couldn't do it. I cannot do it. I don't understand that game. It's like I've talked about it before. It's a PvPvE game, right? It's you versus another team versus enemies. Both teams are trying to perform a heist, but it's like it's Robin Hood aesthetic, and so like you got folks with bow and arrows and shit.
I'd like to do a dramatic reading, if I may, ladies and gentlemen. On the Kind of Funny Slack, there's a channel called Game Codes. This is where people go, hey, can we get this game? Or I say, hey, these people are approaching us for review codes. Who wants it? But you can also put in there, hey, Greg, can you go get this? Because I know everybody, so it's my job to PR interface. May 3rd. 9:05 p.m. Mike Howard says, "Hey Greg, any way I can get a Hood and Outlaw? Can I get a Hood, Outlaws, and Legends code for Xbox? Wanted to ask before I buy it. Thank you." Blessing chimes in, "Hi, I too would like a Hood, Outlaws, and Legend codes." And I was like, "All right, cool." I come back, I'm hitting him up, I'm explaining who I'm going to, blah blah. Get the codes. I put them out there. Blessing, yes. And I go, would I like this game? Because I had heard nothing about this game, and then you jabronis pop up all excited about it. Mike Howard goes, I'm like, would I like this game? Mike pops up. 2 teams, 4v4, PvPvE. The goal is to pull off a heist in a medieval setting. Both teams look to secure the key from the big NPC guard, loot the treasure, and make it out safely, all while the other team and NPCs try to stop them / do the same thing. 4 classes seems like a good amount of maps to kick off the game, I think. Don't quote me. But I believe there is crossplay. One of the few new multiplayer releases on the calendar for the start of the new year. To which I respond...
He said to not quote him on that, Greg.
Well, no, I mean, if we just say don't quote him here, like, I don't know. And also, we can bear
But also,
Google
it
right
is
now.
crossplay. It is crossplay.
Oh, there it is. It's done.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't even need to Google it. Blessings, my,
He says all that, and my
Quote me
response is just, oh no, that's not for me. I was like, when he's like, oh, it's multiplayer, PvE, there's all this stuff, it's medieval. I was like, oh, fuck this, I'm not even gonna try this game.
I got excited because we've seen trailers for it in the whole Summer Games mess. I think there are at least 2 different events that had trailers for Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. And both times I was like, oh, this seems like it could be fun. And the closer we've gotten to it, the more I've been like, all right, let's fucking go. Let's try it out. So when we got it, I was like, all right, here it is. Let's play some Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. Hopefully this hooks us in. And my 2 gripes with it are, one, it is way too complicated. There's way too much going on. And so you talk about the PvE, and yeah, like the whole setup is, 2 teams doing heists, NPCs, all this stuff. There are just way too many steps per match and things that are going on. And so you and your team are trying to stealth through these fortresses and figure out which NPC has the key. You're then trying to pickpocket the key out of that NPC, so you can go then take it to unlock the treasure. You're then taking that treasure and then trying to take it back to the winch, and then you are winching it onto your ship. And both teams are trying to do that exact thing, and they're both fighting with the NPCs and fighting with each other. And there's just way too many steps in this multiplayer game. My second gripe with it is that the gameplay just isn't fun. It looks fun. I watch videos of it and I'm like, this looks like a good time, but actually playing it, like the collision of your arrows or crossbows or whatever weapon you're using, and then also your melee attacks, just don't feel good. It feels crunchy in a way that's bad. You know, it feels like you're just hacking away at bullet sponges, and it doesn't feel great to me. Those are my 2 gripes.
Yeah, I understand. Delete it from the hard drive. Move on with your life.
Yeah. But it came out Monday, May 10th. If that sounds fun to you, boom, go get them. There's also Destiny 2 Season of the Splicer that came out Tuesday, May 11th for PS5 and PS4. That is one that I've heard good things about. And so if you're a Destiny fan, congratulations. Unless that person that I saw on Twitter that talked about it was wrong, in which that case, I'm sorry for you. We also got Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
I'm stoked that happened, or sorry, but I ain't reading that.
or I'm sorry that happened. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Wrath of the Druids DLC came out for PS5, or is coming out for PS5 and PS4 on Thursday, May 13th.
Aaron, what's your temperature check on this one?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if it'll get me back into Valhalla. Like, I feel like I'm in the minority that really liked Valhalla. I feel like for some reason there's been an insurgence of people on Twitter like the last couple of weeks who've been talking major shit about that game. And yeah, I'm excited to see if it brings me back into that world. I really liked my Eivor and the relationships that I made in there. So yeah, I definitely want to try it out and see if I stick with it and stuff like that. I feel like major expansions like this, I don't even know how major this one is, but like kind of like whatever story expansions, whatever you call them, are usually not my like thing that I usually go to, but I want to try this out and just kind of be in that world again, because that game is so pretty and just so fun to be in. So yeah, I
got a code for it over the weekend and spent a couple hours with it on Sunday afternoon, because I'm not in a similar boat to you. Obviously, you beat Valhalla, you went all the way through, whereas I did my usual Ubisoft thing at times of like, all right, cool, it's 33 hours in and I need to move on to something else for review, and then I'll get back to you. And I never got back to it. So when this dropped, I was like, oh man, like this will be a great way to get me back in and give me something to go do and start off. And I was surprised after, usually I think you leave a game behind and you come back and there's such a learning curve to get back on the horse,
like
kind of thing.
Like what we tried to do with Destiny 2 recently.
Yeah, exactly.
Destiny 2. It's like, like when we got ourselves hyped to get back into that game for some fucking reason.
Turned it back on, like, what the fuck is happening? We both put
it on for 2 hours and then learned. Like,
let's go run this thing everybody says is great. You want me to pay for it? Ah, fuck, I'm out of here.
I forgot that like, all of the expansions are free on Game Pass. And
yeah, exactly.
All right, well, I'm not getting.
No, this one I was shocked of how easy it was to get back in the rhythm immediately, and how much fun Valhalla combat is, and how much to brutalize these people are, and then to get into this and have the story and understand what was going on. But it was the same thing that I ran into with, and again, this isn't a full review by any stretch of the imagination. It was the same because I'm maybe an hour, 2 hours into this thing.
Yeah.
But it was the same idea of, cool, I need to get back to Returnal, and then I went and played a bunch of Returnal, and I haven't felt the pull back to Valhalla, because it was like, this is more. If you want more Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is a ridiculous statement because there's so much Assassin's Creed Valhalla in that game.
How does the leveling situation work work, because like that's really what staved me off to really getting to like the true end game, like almost like epilogue part of the story of Valhalla, is just like how crazy the level grinding got once you got up to like I think the level cap in the base game was like 340 or some shit, and I was at like
none of that shit's in here. It's I think I actually popped in today to say hi to our friends Yusuf and Chastity, who were streaming it over on the Ubisoft channel. And when I popped in, they tried to give me the pitch, and I was like, motherfuckers, I'm playing it. But I believe Chastity says, yeah, you just need a character that's level 50. So it's not meant to be like end game stuff. It's meant to be something you can get into and go with.
Gotcha. Hopefully it'll help with like if it's leveled for my character at level 280 or whatever. Hopefully that'll
you'll be fine.
Help me boost to maybe even think about trying to go for the epilogue stuff.
Well, if you buy some Helix credits, you could be leveling faster just for
I did that for Odyssey, because you know what, Greg? Grinding at Odyssey fucking sucks.
Yeah,
Odyssey's so goddamn rich. Honestly, when I this is not an indictment. It's just
and also
this
there's
is like
way too much fucking gear in Odyssey. I said
no, there isn't, dude. Dude, I want you to know, like for real. I was like, jumped into Valhalla and I played a little bit, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, do I delete Valhalla and just re-download Odyssey because I never finished all the DLC? I love Odyssey. It's ice cream.
Awesome.
I like Rocky Road. You like chocolate. It's fine. It's fine.
I love that for you.
I do miss Cassandra. I really like Cassandra.
Malaka. You know what? Fuck it. I'm doing it.
All right.
He's
Despite
doing
my
it,
overall thoughts on Odyssey, which you can dive in deep on Assassin's Creed in review, available at youtube.com/kindafunnygames, where I dive in deep into all of my thoughts on all the major games. Like, I do really like Cassandra as a character, despite not really liking everything that surrounds her. Cassandra's really fun. I do miss her as a character.
Also coming out this week is Mass Effect Legendary Edition for PS4. That's on Friday, May 14th. Let me tell you, I'm so excited for Mass Effect.
I was gonna say that's what I want. Temperature check. You've never played Mass Effect. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm very excited just because
You think you're gonna get hooked and play them all, or what's your deal?
I think I'm depending on how I feel about the first one. I mean, obviously that's going to influence how I play the rest, but I go into it hoping that I get hooked and hoping that I feel compelled to play the whole series, because Mass Effect is a game that is very much when people describe it to me, I'm like, that sounds like everything I like in video games. Like, I'm such a big fan of like Bethesda RPGs, right? Like Fallout is one of my favorite Fallout 3 is one of my favorite video games of all time. And yeah, like hearing people talk about it, like hearing about it being like this sci-fi like third-person shooter, big old RPG where you can make relationships, do companion quests, and all that stuff. Yeah. All the stuff that I love about Fallout, but then also games like Outer Worlds and similar games has me like, there has to be no way that I don't fall into this, and so I'm looking forward to it from that aspect. I'm hoping I get into it.
I'm excited to kick the tires and go. And for me, what's interesting is, I did not like Mass Effect 1. Like, at the time, I thought it was too clunky, and I didn't like the dialogue and getting XP for having to go through conversations. Yeah, a bunch of little things, and maybe I just wasn't in the mood. But Mass Effect 2 is the one that I thought the suicide mission, the story was so clear. It was awesome. Hooked. Fucking adored it. Like Mass Effect 3, don't have a huge end of the world problem with it. So I'm excited to start Legendary Edition and start with 1 and see the improvements they made for combat and things, and see if not only does it does it reinvigorate me to play Mass Effect 1 all the way through, a game I've never seen, I've never rolled credits on. And then if I do that, does it then, while I'm back, like, do I actually go through? Because I'll have a new character, I'll have new connections to, my squad mates that I haven't had before, in terms of like where I started with what I thought of Garrus and Rex and things like that.
Greg, since you're kind of a more of an expert than Bless and I here,
Sure.
how would you estimate long each of these games are, like, as a total package?
They're not ridiculous. It's if you want to go through and do everything, right? Let me get. I don't want to talk out my ass.
That's been my big fear when it comes to people asking, all right, are you going to play all 3? I'm like, is that going to be 150 hours?
It wouldn't be that bad, right? Like, how long to beat and complete all of Mass Effect? This is off comic book resources. Beating every game in the trilogy without the DLC will take 67.5 hours. Now, again, you and I both know this isn't how you'll play it.
Yeah.
You're not going to main path it, right? Like, that's not how this actually shakes out, right? I'm looking on actually how long to beat here on Overview. Yeah, howlongtobeat.com has Mass Effect main story, 17 and a half hours. Main and extras, 28 and a half hours. Completionist, 44. And so, like, that's the idea of, like, it's about how much you're going to get lost. Not to mention, like, you're getting so much content when you start bringing in, you're going to get the DLC for it. You're going to get this other stuff, right? Yeah. Mass Effect 2, they clock a main story at 24 and a half, main and extra 35 and a half, completion is 50. And then Mass Effect 3, main story 24 and a half, main and extra 35 and a half, and then completion is 50.
I'm just scared that I'm going to get overwhelmed, and I'm just not. Like, I'm going to get like 5 hours into the first one, and I'm just going to drop off.
See, they do a good job of onboarding you. And I always like the combat of it, and I like the talkie of it. So, like, I think it's a good merging, let alone the relationships, let alone building all this stuff. Oh, I'm sitting. I tapped a button. My desk is going down.
Sorry. I was like, why are you getting higher and higher?
That's the end of the show. Bye, guys. I do it like crouched down the entire time. I'm excited to get into it and see if it goes. I'm excited for new people to click with it and see how it goes. I'm excited for Blessing. Barry, you haven't played it either, right?
No, never. I only played Andromeda, and I had to make a million different graphics comparisons of Andromeda every time they fucking updated that game because it was such a big deal.
You guys who have heard so much about the game to go in and play and see how it sticks.
The fucked up thing for me is I don't know if I've told this story on content, but I actually did buy Mass Effect 2 for my PS3, and I had started playing the first hour and a half of it, I want to say, and I think I'd put it away. Started playing another game, was going to go back to it, but my PS3 got the yellow light of death and was just dead. And basically I just couldn't go back. I couldn't ever go back to playing Mass Effect 2 after that. And so I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'm
see you guys later. Bloop.
Start playing PC games so I can get my hand on a new PS3 or a PS4, which is what I did.
Understandable.
Sadly. But then, the last one for the big hitters for the week, we're getting Subnautica Below Zero for PS5 and PS4 on Friday, May 14th. So look forward to that. For the picks themselves, because yes, we do have PlayStation picks. We got Retro Machina coming out on the PS4 Wednesday, May 12th. Retro Machina is a single-player action and exploration game set in a retro-futuristic universe. Experience the journey of a little robot as they solve intricate puzzles and begin unraveling the mysteries of a world long forgotten. Game looks really cool. I was surprised when I checked out the trailer for this one because it has a really cool art style, and you're telling me it's a puzzle game that seems really awesome.
You're gonna get on it, you think, or no?
No, it's that difficult thing of just too many games to play because we just talked about Mass Effect.
Right now. Yeah, exactly.
Aside from Mass Effect, the other day I booted up Days Gone finally.
And
let me tell you, so far I'm not like into it or out of it, right? I'm not like I hate this, but I'm not like
it's the thing that's happening.
I'm in. Yeah, it's a thing that's happening, and just out of curiosity, I went on how long to beat for the game, and I saw that it takes, at a minum, 40 hours at least.
Told you. Nobody wants to listen to me. I when it was that thing when it popped up and people were like, "Oh man, like and I saw it like we should do that for a book club," and I was like, "There's not a chance I replay that," because I remember clocking 50 hours in that at review. I'm like, no, that ain't happening. Don't worry about that business.
Yeah, right now I'm like, damn, I would really rather just play anything else than Days Gone. And like, not to as an insult to the game, more so.
No.
Mass Effect's coming out, and I'm playing Apex Arenas and a bunch of other things that I would rather spend my time with.
Yeah, I think when we get into talking about like what you've been playing, I think we're gonna see a lot of that bleed of like what's going on. And it was funny. I'm trying to find it in time, and that's why I'm stalling a bit. But somebody had written into the mailbag for PS I Love You and was like, for the love of God, please don't do Days Gone. It's too long. There's other things to play.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And yeah, like it was I felt like I had a cloud of dread over me over the last week as I finished Disco Elysium and was like, all right, cool, it's time to pick it up. And I booted it up and I was like, damn.
Hip Hop Anonymous, wrote in on May 7th and said, for the love of games, please, I'm begging you. There's too many games this month for Days Gone. It's so long.
They're exactly
Remember, it's our hashtag PS We Played It. Do you want
exactly
it?
Right.
Or played this? You wanted it. Here it is. Go get it.
God damn it. We also got Death Crown coming to PS4 Thursday, May 13th. Death Crown is a minimalist real-time strategy game in a 1-bit style where you play as Death herself, commanding her legions of death and punishing humanity's kingdom for its overconfidence. I picked this one specifically for its art style. Yeah, it has a really, really cool art style, and it seems like a very simple strategy game. I went and watched a short review on it to see like is it actually a good game, and from the one review I watched, they seem to have good things to say about it. Like the one thing they put out specifically was the fact that it's easy to learn, but then also the story of it isn't that deep, and like for strategy games, I'm sure many people go to them to like get a cool sense of the world and all that stuff. They're saying that don't go into this game expecting that depth to it in the narrative, but it seems outside of that, it seems like it could be a fun game. And so if you're looking for a strategy game with a 1-bit art style, boom, there you go.
Well, all right. Blessing, it's time for what you've been playing. And I think, we talk about the insanity of reviews kicking up right now and what that's done. I think that's both the story of our lives here in terms of what you've been playing. So what I talked about Wrath of the Druids real quick. It's definitely more Assassin's Creed. But again, that was a super passing thing. But I've been playing it since we last were able to talk about it on PS I Love You, right? We reviewed Resident Evil Village over on the Gamescast, played through that. You can go get the full thoughts and opinions over there. But mainly it's been that conversation we've had of, I had that week off to move. Returnal dropped during it. I got to play a couple days of Returnal leading to that review where I was like, 7 hours in, 8 hours in when we did the review. And I was like, I fucking love this game and I can't wait to play more of it. But then it was right into Resident Evil. So it was no Returnal. Then I started playing some Returnal, but I'm like chipping away at it. And it's that horrible thing of, I come back and I'm like, all right, let's do a thing. I'm exhausted. So I play like 45 minutes and I've forgotten everything because it's been a week since I played Returnal. So I'm like, oh, right. Like I need to engage these enemies by run up and melee them. This, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. Then it was on to another thing I'm working on for review. Then I was doing a whole bunch of like Fall Guys and this, that, and the other for the streams or whatever. And then finally Sunday, it was time. I was like, I am playing Returnal and nothing else until Mass Effect. Like that is like that thing where I need to commit to this game because I love this game. I need to actually put serious hours on the board. I need to get good at it. And it's something I can't keep doing this. Oh, I played for 30 minutes, one night and then 7 days later came back and did it. So that's the plan until Mass Effect is in my hand, just playing Returnal. And goddamn, what a game is Returnal, Blessing.
Hell
right?
yeah, baby.
It's so fucking good.
God, I love it. You know
good.
what I mean? And it's like, it is that thing. For the record, I am now through the first biome. I've beaten I am into biome 2. Thank you very much. Which isn't impressive, I know, when you're like, Greg, 3 weeks ago you're on the review and you were stuck at that boss. I'm like, yes, but remember I didn't play it. I think, like I said, 7.5, 8 hours is what I said on the review on PS I Love You. I'm probably at 10 hours now. So I've done it. I've seen the astronaut. I've gotten the figure. I've gone through the house. Like I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm making progress. And like last night I got into biome 2, made it pretty deep, but had a bad roll in terms of what I came in with after the fight. But it's one of those I'm anxious to get back to. And that's the thing about it where I don't love getting my ass kicked in games, but I do love getting my ass kicked in Returnal. Like it is that thing of we've talked about it a little bit in the review, but like I'm living it in the moment of like, I lose the fucking fight. I skip the cutscenes and I put the controller down and I open my phone and just listen to the rain outside of my ship. And like, you know what? I just need to clear my head. I need to take a breath. And it was that thing. I was on the Whatnots podcast yesterday and I was like, I was saying the same thing to them of like, I'm only going to play Returnal till Mass Effect. Right. And so like the thing is like, I knew I was right there. I'm like, I now have the skills and rhythm and knowledge of like, like it's that thing where for so many those first encounters when you run into somebody in Returnal, right, an enemy type, it is learning what they do and then they'll do something you don't expect. And now having them all dead to rights of like the fucking cloak dudes who show up and then go orange and shoot at you, know what I mean?
God.
Being able to dodge back, the giant red maw that pops up and shoots the shit out of his mouth, and it's like, cool, just dodge that and run up and just melee this motherfucker to death. It's it's like now I'm like it's done the Rorschach thing of like, you're trapped in here with me. And so I was on the podcast with them of like, if I just get the time tonight, I can beat the thing and get out of it. And I did, and it felt so fucking good. It felt so fucking good, Blessing.
It's even better when you make it to a new biome and realize that like you have brand new enemies to figure
new
out.
Things to learn, new guys to go for.
But the different biomes are so good though. You get to biome 2 and it feels so different from biome 1. So distinct. I was gonna say the name of it, but I guess I should keep that from spoilers. But like it feels so cool when you step back into it each time, especially when you keep dying again and you are trying to make your way back into biome 2. When you finally get there, it's like, all right, sweet, a different vibe, different enemies, all this stuff. And Biome 2 specifically has a layout that I really like because it is way like Biome 1 takes place in like this almost like jungle-y area that is dark and really is divided up room to room. Biome 2 has way more of an open, free feel to it, and the fact that they're able to kind of keep that consistency, like you still have that same core game where it is you're going from room to room and taking risks in certain rooms and figuring out like how far you want to go.
It's more open, but it also feels more like a straight shot in Biome 2 as well, and it's like such an interesting, different dynamic, and even like. I'll avoid like future spoilers for anything just in case Greg gets there. Is like Biome 3 has a very distinct, like even Biome 4, which there is like if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about here of like how impressed I was in like how that even felt different in just a vibe wise kind of way. It's just like it really, really cool, and
they really did a really good job with the different environments and making like each environment you step into, I feel like has its own gimmick almost or its own setup that makes it feel unique.
And but getting to Biome 5, I was like, that's the one that I'm stuck on right now. It's just like, holy shit! I didn't think we'd see like something like this in this game. And so I don't know if I'll ever beat it, but
Barrett,
it's so fucking good.
Since you're that far, how do you feel about the story so far? Are you into
I'm really
what's going
digging
on?
it, man. Like once essentially like the halfway point, essentially for the game, I think at least knowing that there's how many biomes there are and stuff, like
6,
it was one of those things where like it started to come together, but not really. But kind of, and it's like like I even explained, like I had to explain it to my dad because I played it like over the weekend and stuff, and like he had seen me play it a little bit like on stream and stuff, and I just kind of explained the like almost Groundhog's Day nature to him, and then like the halfway point, and I explained that bit to him. He was like, "Oh my god, that's fucked up," and just like, I really dig it. It's not the main.
Do you feel like you're going to? Do you think you're going to finish it now? Because what I know, like earlier on, it felt like you had trepidation of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to
before
get
like
to the end of it.
When it was like the third boss and I was stuck on that for a week, like I took a couple of days off from it and then came back and was able to take down the third and fourth boss in one run. And it was one of those things like now that I'm like slowly chipping away at unlocking the door to the fifth boss, it was like, I could see myself actually like beating this, and like the gameplay itself like pulls me back in, even though like there'll be some runs where I don't like really accomplish anything major. Clearing out a room is still so fucking satisfying, even on like the not major runs. It's just like I feel like I'm always like either learning something new about an enemy type or like just different strategies, or like figuring out different builds and stuff like that, or just getting that satisfying feeling of like going into a room and just clearing fools.
Whenever you die,
so
you feel like whenever you die, it does feel like it's your fault, or you took a risk that you shouldn't have taken.
Exactly.
You know, I either fell into a pit that had an enemy that was just too powerful for me, or an enemy hit me in a way that I should have dodged that, or I was just positioned badly.
I've said this weird comparison before, but it reminds me a lot of Cuphead, and like the way that I play Cuphead and kind of think about fights in Cuphead, especially when you have like all these blue and orange and red orbs like flowing towards you and stuff. It's really interesting of like where my attention is pulled and like how I'm trying to think around fights and stuff. It's a really great game on just a pure gameplay level, and just like the little story tidbits are just kind of additive. But I think on a pure gameplay level, like Returnal is by far my game of the year.
Yeah, and that's the thing of why I keep getting, you know, I love my job and having to go play other things, but it's always there in the back of my mind. I got to get back to it. So I'm excited to see my continued journey with Returnal, which I think sadly will be longer than most, but I'm also enjoying it. I just need to commit to it until I get Mass Effect, and then we'll see what happens. And then beyond that, Blessing, to wrap it up, I want to give an update on Retromania Wrestling. I've given you first impressions last week because I had a really brief time with it because of everything else going on. I played a whole bunch more and played on the stream with Mike. I really dig it. If you liked those classic wrestlers, if you're not somebody who's like, oh, I need to see AEW guys, I need to see WWE guys in the game, I think, and granted, there's, you know, X people like, you know, the Blue Meanie and people like that, John Morrison. It's got a limited roster for sure, but it's got such a cool style to it, and it is a fun yet simple game of getting in there, building up, to being able to pull off your finisher with your the segmented bar. And I just saw today they were teasing that they're going to add a new mode, and they still have DLC wrestlers coming. So I think it might be $30. People I know balked at the price and like, oh, there's not that much going on in it. There's just a story mode. I think that over time it could prove itself. And granted, I guess I don't know if the new mode would be free or if the wrestlers are free either, but I really dig RetroMania Wrestling. It's a game I'm keeping on the hard drive to keep going back and platinum because it's got a really good trophy list too if you're a wrestling fan and stuff to do in there. So I'm enjoying that. And then just to put it out there, because I want to make sure everybody knows when I go crazy, I platinum 3 games. They're all really shitty ones that Kyle Stevenson told me about. St. Patrick's Day break head to head, Easter candy break head to head, Valentine candy break head to head, and it's just a little why did I just blank on it? Like Arkanoid, where you're bouncing the ball back. Why am I fucking Brick Breaker? God damn, that was disappeared on me. It's copy paste Brick Breaker thing. There's a whole bunch more of these that are all up for $6 a piece, $7 a piece, that are just cheapo plats that you pop at. Oh, I think it took, I can look over here. Yeah, each one took me about like 25 minutes, and that's me doing my phone, and like I could obviously commit to it faster. But I definitely had one of those nights where I'm like, I am too exhausted to, I think it was during the Village review. I'm like, I don't want to play the game and forget story. I don't want to play Returnal because I'm not in that headspace right now. I am in the mood for a cheap ass platinum, and that's what I went and got.
Congratulations.
What you been playing, Bless? Thank you. I feel good. It feels good.
I've been similar to you. I've been playing a lot of games. I already talked all about Hood, Outlaws, and Legends, so I don't have to reiterate that.
Ringing endorsement.
If you're ringing endorsement, go out and check out Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. Apex Legends Arenas, I've spent so much time. That's probably the game I played the most over the last week. And I don't want to spend too much time because we're running pretty late on the show, but I'm addicted to it. Can't stop playing it. It's the most fun I've had with Apex since year 1. It is phenomenal. I love Arenas. It's fantastic. It's the 3v3 mode, the new mode for the game. Oh, it's so good. Me and Ree have been fucking killing it in terms of taking on our enemies and shutting them down. It's awesome. That's Apex Legends Arenas. And then Resident Evil 7. I've been playing it on stream for twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames and finally beat it. Really liked it. It's a really cool game. I would say I probably like it more than Resident Evil Village if I was to compare the two. I just really like I like the focus of it, and I love the specific horror vibe. Like the horror in Resident Evil 7, I think it's more consistent than the horror in Village. I think Village had some highs that might have been higher than the highs in Resident Evil 7, but to me the lows were definitely lower for me, where Resident Evil 7 had moments for me where there's a specific moment late game where there are VHS tapes that are littered throughout the environment. You put in a VHS tape, and the VHS tape in the specific moment I'm about to talk about, like, it is basically like a foreshadowing thing of, hey, this is the place where you're about to go, and this is to kind of tee you up to understand what's about to happen. And I did that, got to the end of that tape, and on stream I applauded because I was blown away by the creativity in which they went about a Saw-like situation, and I really dug that. And so shout out to Resident Evil 7. The game that I really do want to talk about though for a second is Disco Elysium, because Disco Elysium is our book club for this last month, and I finally finished it, and I loved the game. I was blown away by it. As a reminder for people who may not be familiar, right? Disco Elysium, the final cut, is the new console version, or the final cut version of Disco Elysium, which is a point and click RPG, a CRPG, top down. It is way more of a hardcore RPG, I'd say, than I think a lot of RPGs we get nowadays, where it's there is like basically no combat. It is very dialogue driven. It is pretty much all dialogue driven for the most part. You're talking to characters, trying to figure out what's going on. You're exploring a smaller map and trying to get to the bottom of what is going on in the world, because you play as a cop who wakes up with amnesia in his hotel. And I believe I talked about this when I first brought up the game, that like the way the game tackles its skill system and the way that skill system speaks to you, the player, and is actually given a voice and is personified. I think this is really fascinating and really well done. And the writing in the game is just so deep, and so like there's so much writing in this game. I don't know if you've gotten to play it a bit now, Greg.
Yeah. So like again, this is our hashtag. We played this. Hashtag we played this. So it's for. This gets so confusing. It's what we were supposed to be playing in April to then talk about it in May. Now you're supposed to be talking about Days Gone, so we talk about it in June. The conversation was that this episode we wanted to do the Ratchet thing and then the Disco Elysium book club. But when you rolled it, you immediately went to Twitter and you're like, Disco Elysium is one of those games that like made me seek out a spoiler cast. Like it's that good, which speaks to the caliber of how much is going on in that game. And so what we've talked about is we put it here in Disco Elysium to talk about it right now in terms of what you've been playing. But you're going to do a spoiler cast for Memorial Day. We'll have Memorial Day off that Monday. So this will be the episode that posts on June 1st. That'll be a spoiler cast about Disco Elysium. So you still have more time if you haven't played Disco Elysium to do it. More importantly, you'll have time to get your questions in. I should add that right now. Yeah, I can get questions in. I'll put up a document or whatever so we can add it or whatever. Yeah, it was a similar thing where you and I think talked about it last week on the show of like, oh yeah, we said next week we got to get moving on it or whatever. So it is one of those that I popped on, and it's always for me personally rewarding and fulfilling, I guess, when I'm like, you know what? I definitely knee-jerk reaction on this game when it was in the running for Game of the Year and I was playing stuff there where I only played a little bit of it and I was like, oof, this isn't for me. I totally respect the reviews and understand what it is. It's just not the same thing. And then it's that thing where, the more tens it gets when it comes to console and people talking about how much they love it and stuff, I was like, man, did I judge it too harshly? And when I turned it on and I was like, I was like, no, I did not. Like, I get it. Like, I totally get why people would love this game. It is just not a game for me. Like, it turns me off at everything you love about it, like, turns me off about it, where I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play this game. And it's not to the quality of the game at all. I'm not saying like that. It's just not a Greg Miller game.
Yeah, in weird ways, it's a game that's not for me either. It's a game that I wouldn't say is for everybody. Like, I definitely understand anybody who's like, yeah, this isn't my type of game. When I was talking to you, I think it was Andy I was talking to about it a little bit, where I was like, yeah, no, the game feels like a game for people who definitely read books. Like, you gotta be down to sit and read and take in a lot of information, take in a lot of text, and really be down to, I think the enjoyment I get out of the game is learning about its world and the inner workings of its world, and how the characters and these different factions of characters and different cultures of characters interact with each other in this world. Like, the game does such a good job of world building and the unique elements of its skill system. I think is probably the other big thing in terms of what the game is and how well it goes about it, where now that I've finished the game, I have a better idea of how it works. I think the first time I talked about it, I was like, yeah, dude, basically like the inner workings of your mind are their own characters and you level them up and all this stuff. It's weird. And it is weird even now that I finished the game and kind of understand a little bit more of it. But basically, like, my character, to give an example, I spec high in logic, and my encyclopedia skill specifically was dominating because I had that thing all the way up. And basically what that is since my character has amnesia, my skill for encyclopedia pretty often in the game, as I was playing, there'll be points where I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. And my encyclopedia would basically be like I'm going to pull a random fact here and drop it about the world. And that's going to clue you into either what this thing is or give you a little bit of context so you can make a better decision. Or I'm just going to give you a random fact just because that's basically what the encyclopedia skill is. And there's a ton of different types of things. There's this thing called Inland Empire. And basically what that does is it lets you talk to inanimate objects in the game. And I didn't really know that skill was a thing until after I beat the game and listened to a spoiler cast, and I was like, wait, that's what that does? It lets you talk to chairs and shit. And yeah, like there's like empathy, and there's basically a bunch of different things that basically change the lens in which you view the world. And it is very fascinating how it works. And even after beating the game, I said earlier that it's not a game that I would say is necessarily for me, and I kind of stick by that, but it's a game that after beating it, I am impressed by it and fascinated by how they're able to pull it off. And I would say I am those two things more than I enjoyed it. Like,
interesting.
Playing the game, a lot of the times I was bored by it in many instances, and was kind of like, all right, let's speed this thing up, let's get through this.
That's what I told you, right? When we talked about it on the show, I think, where I was like, Oh yeah, I tried to play it for Game of the Year and I didn't really like it. I think I tried it again and I kind of like drifted off. I was so tired. And then it was like we finished PS I Love You and I had something like an hour later and you texted me like, what do you think of it? I'm like, all right, I just slacked you. I was like, definitely almost fell asleep again. And you're like, right now? Like it's 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like it's just not a game that was like engaging me and making me go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a game that I think I'm just way impressed with more than I actually enjoyed it in the process of playing it.
Yeah,
which,
for sure.
And that's still the thing that I take as something that if I did have a game of the if I guess for my game of the year list this year, I don't know if I'm gonna include it in it, but it's definitely like a contender because it's just a game that for me I think has changed the way that I even think about writing in video games and in RPGs. Like it had that sort of impact on me more so than this is my favorite type of game kind of thing. And I'm sure we'll talk about it way more in the spoiler cast because that feels like a way more appropriate way to talk about the game with so much going on in the story and narrative.
So keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, well, first off, Blessing, keep it on the tip of your tongue, your game of the year thing. I want to talk about that in the post show. But cool. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we ask Disco Elysium. You can go with your questions, your comments, your concerns, your spoiler thoughts to, of course, patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Click on the participation hashtag, and that will, of course, let you go to the PS I Love You form to put in your thoughts for that Disco Elysium spoiler cast that'll post as a PS I Love You for Memorial Day week. So it'll be June 1st that post. It'll be before then. Blessing will get in one of the dozens of, I think, British people who love this game. You can get Simon Cardy, you can get Lucy James, you can get whoever the hell you want.
After playing it, I understand why it's the British folks specifically that love this game.
Yeah, this seems like a
very
British
European
person-ass game. You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
British
where's the
game.
beer, Barrett? Where's the skateboards? Where's the gun? That's what I need.
Tubular like vibe.
Totally,
There's absolutely no combat in this game.
Like, imagine having to play the original version of this game where all you're doing is reading. Oh my god.
No wonder I fell asleep. You know what I mean? I'm like Kevin
over
here.
Novel at that point. Jesus
Get out of here.
Christ.
Get out of here.
Before
we get out, we're gonna get into a post show on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. We have a segment called hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode. Blessing, last week you picked Returnal. Who is among the cream of the crop?
I did. The first runner up here I have here is Jordan Rowan. And also shout out to everybody who submitted. There were quite a few submissions for Returnal.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to remember, if we every week on hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode, we pick a game. You go on Twitter and post hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode with your photo from the game, and we go through here to pick 3 of our favorites.
Yes. So this is Jordan. It looks like they're in the first biome and they're looking upwards toward the trees. And I just thought it was a really cool image. It was a really cool shot. The ways that the trees sit in front of the sky.
That's awesome,
give this nice like light and dark kind of look.
The way kind of like what seems to be like the moon like kind of shining through and shit
shines
like
through it. Yeah, so you can see some of the ray tracing, and then also the I don't know how much I looked up in this game, and so like the way the trees kind of tangle in and kind of look like tentacles, and the way that a lot of the creatures in the game are tentacle creatures and seem to take a lot of inspiration from Lovecraftian horror. This screenshot I think takes a lot of inspiration from that, or at least the design of the trees, I should say, gives off that vibe. So shout out to that.
A good way to have the environment reflect the wildlife.
Yes, for sure. And also shout out to everybody for this photo mode, because this game doesn't have a photo mode. And so basically a lot of people who submitted removed the UI and played with the camera in order to get their shots. The second runner-up I have here is from Mustafa Depo.
Ooh, that's a great one.
Yeah. And if you full screen it, I said this a while ago that I'm very big into the vertical shots when it comes to screenshots, and Mustafa here did not disappoint. So yeah, it's the main character standing in front of I think this is the first biome still. They're like these plant things that have the lights at the end of them. If you probably know what I'm talking about, right? Like the blue.
Yeah, it's what fauna that has this it looks like cattails, right? But it's got this blue light at the end, this neon blue light at the end.
Yeah, and when you stand by them, they start to reach toward you. But yeah, they got a picture in front of that.
You.
Looks really cool, just to tickle you a little bit.
It's not as scary as the red ones that actually grab you and shit. You know?
Yeah,
these ones are just little friendly guys.
And then we got a winner. All right, the winner comes from a Bombbeard, where it is this fun silhouette look of Celine, the main character. I think this is in the house, but I'm not positive. I don't know where they would have gotten the shot.
See, I don't think
this is the astronaut.
This is the astronaut.
This is the astronaut. This is the astronaut thing that she talks about throughout the game. It's great.
That's what that is.
This has got to be in the house, because I think that sun thing that's like kind of behind him is like like on the wall somewhere, and like it's so it's like haunting the way like the face of the sun from this whatever knick-knack you want to call it, it's like kind of like in the helmet of the astronaut. Yeah, this is
really cool.
This is
really great positioning. Good use of grayscale too for the image. So shout out to Bombbeard, our winner for this week's hashtag PSLF photo mode. Also shout out to everybody who submitted, because there were a lot of great submissions. I really had to narrow down.
It's my turn to pick, and it's about time we pick a game that has a photo mode once again and that everybody's excited for. So let's do Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So many people I know are jumping into it this weekend, and I know it has a dope photo mode. They went out of their way to talk about that. It will slow everybody's progress down. So remember your homework, hashtag PS We Love Photo Mode. And hashtag PS I love photo mode. We keep saying sometimes it's plural, sometimes it's just the I like the show, and nobody knows what's going on.
Sometimes it's PS I hate photo mode.
Which we don't understand.
People are still using it though. Like every week I go in there just to see, and people are still putting in Avenger shots in there. So
okay, fair. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been PS I Love You XOXO. Remember, this is Kind of Funny's PlayStation podcast. Each and every week, Blessing and I come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. You, ladies and gentlemen, can be part of the show at patreon.com/kinda funny games. You, of course, can go get and submit questions there. You can be part of the show. You can be a Patreon producer. You can get the exclusive post show we're about to do. You can get the show ad free. You can have a great time. However, if you have no bucks tossed our way, it is no big deal. Of course, you can get the show. youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, podcast services around the globe. You, of course, have to sit through the ads that are great now and look great. Thank you, Roger. And don't get the post show, but you still get a hell of a show. That's it. We got a post show to do. Next week, Kyle Stevenson joining us, coming on the show. Yeah, excited about that. It'll be a trio to talk about some PlayStation stuff next week. But for now, post show to do. So until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.